Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If I can call this meeting to order. We are going to be following two agendas this evening. We have our first agenda, which will be the Committee of the Whole meeting, and that will be followed by our council meeting. We're going to start off with a prayer from Councillor Frank Danch, and that will be followed by the national anthem from Mr. Joe Longfellow. Councillor Danch.
Almighty God, by your goodness, mercifully look upon your people, that we may be governed and preserved evermore in body and soul, through Jesus Christ, your Son, our Lord, who lives and reigns with you in the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy Son's command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true North, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Joel. As always, well done.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My pleasure as always.
Madam Clerk, are there any addendum items this evening?
Thank you. None this evening.
Thank you, Ashley. Members of Council, if I can have a motion to confirm the agenda, please. Councillor Steele, Councillor Doucette. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Are there any disclosures of interest this evening, members? With none, we'll move on to items requiring a separate discussion this evening. Members of Council, Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Number 12.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further items, members? Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. 3, 4, and I'd like to speak to 12 as well. Thanks.
Further items. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 1 for staff. Item 3. And, item 15 as well, I believe it is. Yeah, item 15.
Any further items, members? With none, I'll take a motion to approve the remainder of the items, please. Councillor Kenny, Councillor Bodner, any questions or comments to that? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. I do have a presentation to make at the podium. Members, if you will bear with me. Members, it's once again, with, I guess, torn feelings that we are going to once again see one of our members of staff retire and move on. And although this individual hasn't been with us too long, only 4 years, there's no question that he's had quite an impact in the community, especially within our building community. And the individual I speak of is Mr. Ernie Cronier, our current chief building official here at our community. And Ernie did come from the town of Pelham. The town of Pelham has become the breeding ground for the city of Brook Ormond, it seems. Many of our newest recruits have come from the town, whether it be Ernie himself, the next building official that we just hired, and I'm going to allow Ernie to introduce him and pass the torch, but as well Ms. Carrie McIntosh, who is the current executive assistant for Mr. Heil. And it seems like every time I owe Mr. Augustine, Mayor Augustine, a lunch because, again, we're taking all their employees, but by all means, quality employees. And Ernie gave us a lot of good years in his time here and has really ensured that the building community does, in fact, not only build with quality, but also ensure that while they're building with quality, that the rules under the building code are met on a daily basis. I can say with first-hand experience that Ernie did that diligently, and of course with that always comes the phone calls and the complaints, but I have to say also comes the accolades because of the seriousness of which Ernie has always taken his job, and with that the respect that he's given to the community through being that diligent. So if I can call Ernie Cronje up here, I do have a few presentations to make to Ernie in recognition of the 4 years of dedicated and outstanding service to the City of Port Colborne. Ernie, on behalf of City Council, your colleagues, our colleagues, but most importantly, Ernie, on behalf of the citizens of the City of Port Colborne, we do want to express our appreciation for everything that you've given us, everything that you've given the building community, and therefore the new families and some of the moving families throughout the community. In fact, the contributions your efforts have provided to our community will be everlasting, and it's my pleasure on behalf of members of City Council, but once again, more importantly on behalf of the community, to present to you with this plaque, as well as a small memento of our appreciation, which I'm sure you can figure out what it is. But we'll have you open it anyway, so you can show everybody our appreciation for the years of service that you've given the City of Port Colborne. Thank you. Well done. I also have this for you. And yes, you have to open it.
I have to open it.
You have to.
Here?
Right here. Is it building permit? Members of council do recognize it's been tradition that we give this painting to our retirees. It shows the promenade as well as the Welland Canal, something that we're extremely proud of. I'm sure Ernie will find a great spot in his home for that.
For sure.
There's a plaque here too, Ernie, that you can either put in the front or the back with that painting.
Okay, great.
So with that, the podium is yours. I'll say a few words.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I really appreciate this presentation, and I really enjoyed my time here. Actually, it's my time coming back here. As some of you may know, I started here in 1980 as the chief building official for 6 years, then moved on to Niagara Falls and then Pelham and then back here. So I came back to find my roots and finish out my time as a chief building official. But I really did enjoy my time, and I really appreciate working for the City of Port Colborne. And I thank you very much. And I would like to now introduce you to my replacement, Mr. Lyle Merritt. And as Mr. Mayor implied, he comes from the town of Pelham, which seems to be, as the mayor said, a good breeding ground for quality employees who come to City of Port Colborne to work. So I welcome Lyle in this new position, and I'm here to more or less give him the reins and let him take over.
That's great.
And I think there's a bylaw on council tonight to appoint him officially, and tomorrow he can take over.
Thank you, Ernie. I think, anyway, it's an honor for me to be in this position. Now it's up to me to live up to those expectations. I don't foresee any changes. Ernie's got everything in order, so it's just running with him for a few days now to get my feet under me and carry on the way Ernie's been doing things. So I look forward to many years. I was just admiring his photo and thinking maybe in a few years, quite a few years, that you still continue that tradition, because one of my relatives helped build the canal. So
Excellent. Excellent. That's good to
this
know.
is neat to be here. Thanks.
Well, welcome. Welcome.
Thanks.
Is that a picture? Our second presentation is Mr. Keith Walker, who is the chair, and Maggie Walhorn, who is the Senior Advisory Council regarding the newly developed Information and Services Guide. So folks, come on up. Welcome. Did you want to come up here and sit with us, Maggie? Members of Council, just for your information, Keith and Maggie are part of the Seniors Advisory Council. They've done an extreme amount of work, and they're going to present that to us this evening. Welcome.
Mr. Mayor and members of Council, thanks for inviting us here. We're here to present this to you just to let you know what's happening. Our real function is to communicate between the Council and the seniors of the community and make sure that we're all on the same page. They understand what's going on here and you understand what problems they're running into. We found that there are some excellent services around town, a lot of them volunteer services. But we found out that a lot of the seniors around town are not aware of all of the services that are available for them. So jointly we put together a brochure which contains a little brief bit of information about each of the services, what they are, what they do, and how to get in touch with them. And we're going to have this distributed around town, any place that seniors are going to be. We've been discussing ways of doing that, maybe delivered with Meals on Wheels and available in the library and at the different service centres. You all have one. I hope you all read them and find somebody to give it to. Thank you for letting us be here to present these.
Thank you, Keith.
Thanks.
Now, before you guys go anywhere, I do want to express my appreciation to you folks as well as the committee. When I had brought this forward back, I think 4 or 5 years ago, with Council's concurrence to bring a Seniors Advisory Committee and put it in place, these are the exact reasons why.
Yes.
We find that a lot of the seniors sometimes, especially newer residents of the community, don't recognize the amount of services that are available to them throughout the community.
Yes,
And
that's
for you
very
folks
true.
to really bring this all together and continue to advocate on their behalf, communicating, of course, to us,
Yes.
is very, very much appreciated. So thank you for what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Great work. Members of Council, if I can have a motion to receive the presentation, please. Councillor Demeray, Councillor Steele, any questions or comments? Or any questions or comments to the presenters? With none, all those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. Members, I do have a short report this evening. First off, I do want to take this opportunity to express my sincere appreciation to all those involved in welcoming our medical students from the University of Ottawa to the city of Port Colborne during Rural Medicine Week. While speaking with the students throughout the week, it was stated by all of them that they thoroughly enjoyed their experience here within our community. I do want to make special mention to Ms. Joanne Ferriccioli, our Director of Health Services, as well as Councillor B. Kenny, who took a lead role with all the members of our medical faculty that participated in ensuring that those medical learners that were coming into our city had a most enjoyable stay, but equally, if not more importantly, had a stay that was tangible with respect to being within our UCC and working within our different clinics throughout the city. And so therefore, on behalf of the city, and of course, more importantly, the medical students, I simply want to say thank you to all those that did take part and participate throughout the whole week. I have to quote one student, and I think it sums up their appreciation on behalf of all the students, and I quote, "I remain grateful that I was able to complete some of my medical training in and experience the culture of Port Colborne." And I think that was shared throughout the week by all the medical learners, and very much appreciative, especially for the medical faculty, Dr. Remington and Dr. Bell, and all those others, Dr. Dewar, who took part by being preceptors in ensuring that those learners had a first-class experience here in the city of Port Colborne. Today, the Torch of Life Relay touched down here in the city of Port Colborne while making its way throughout the province of Ontario. The Torch of Life Relay is an initiative that supports the thousands of Ontarians, if not Canadians, who are waiting for an organ or tissue donation. Founded by George Marcello, A transplant survivor himself, this initiative brings attention to the need to increase organ and tissue donations so that more Ontarians, more Canadians, more throughout the world, in fact, can get a second chance at life. May I take this opportunity to encourage our residents, members of council, as well as residents in Port Colborne and throughout the Niagara region to open up dialogue with members of your family to discuss organ and tissue donation. For someone in need of a transplant, your donation can will in fact mean the difference between life and death. For more information, please go to our website, our city's website, and follow a link that's listed on the website. It has all the information that's pertinent to both the Torch of Life Relay, as well as the immediate need for organ and tissue donation. Once again, I do encourage our residents to open up a dialogue with members of your family to ensure that you understand and discuss organ and tissue donation. The time to act is now, folks, and take the time to open up that dialogue and hopefully decide to be a family that when those unfortunate times do occur, organ and tissue donation is highly considered. Port Colborne, and I think most people will find out about this in the next couple of hours because the release is just being sent out. But Port Colborne has in fact been named one of the top 20 communities competing for the President's Choice Barbecue Town event here in our country. Members of council will recognize that thousands of Canadians representing hundreds of communities from coast to coast all vied for a coveted spot in the top 20 of the President's Choice Barbecue Town event in an effort to get a step closer for a chance to win a huge, one-of-a-kind barbecue party for their own town, as well as a $25,000 donation to the President's Choice Children's Charity on behalf of our community. The judging committee faced some tough deliberations, but after careful consideration of a number of factors, from voting and creativity of submissions to bringing the event to life, Port Colborne has been selected as one of the top semi-finalists, the only one in the Niagara region, but from all across Canada, one of the 20 semi-finalists. So congratulations to the community, and let's hope for the best at the end of the day that we can come number one. Within the same vein, once again, the city of Port Colborne is in the running to be crowned Canada's ultimate fishing town, something that we worked very hard for last year, and this year we are in it again. We're currently in second place. Hastings is in front of us with 74,000 votes. We're in second place with 42,000 votes. And I have to say, there's a group of people out there working extremely hard, but I can sense that not as many as we had last year working as hard as they are this year. So I do encourage, well, let's face it, guys, last year, the contest here in Port Colborne, we garnered over 140,000 votes. And with only 3 days left, I want to take this opportunity to encourage all of the folks in Port Colborne, all of the folks throughout the Niagara region, to put forward some votes to ensure that Port Colborne, equally as important Niagara, is crowned Canada's ultimate fishing town. If we can receive 140,000 votes last year, I'm sure we can go well over that this year. Right now, again, we have 42,000, so we're 30,000 plus out of first place. Something that we can, as if last year's an example, we can get within hours. So once again, I do encourage all those folks from Port Colborne and throughout the region, if not even beyond, as was the case last year, to place your vote and ensure Port Colborne becomes the ultimate fishing town as we attempted last year. So with that, members, any questions or comments? I'll move right into the Regional Council's report. Councillor Barrick gives his regrets. Is there any, or are there any Regional Council items that I can tend to on behalf of Regional Councillor Barrick? With none, are there any new business, or is there any new business? Members of Council, I have Councillor Bodner, Butters, Danch, Kenny. Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First off, I'd like to give a big thanks to staff for, I brought up about tree trimming on Shirkson Road and Empire Road, and they got at Shirkson Road, and they did a fabulous job. It's well clear of branches for those huge mobile homes, motor homes that come down there, and it's a fabulous job. Another question, just a request, probably to Chris, now that he's Ron Hansen tonight. Volleyball nets at Centennial Park. Weather's good earlier this year. I wonder whether we can get those nets up, and people were looking to play on the weekends, so I wonder if that's possible. And also, last meeting, I think we talked about a speed study on Kalali Street to see how, if those zones are okay. Just wonder where that's at and whether it's in the process, and maybe you could report back at the next meeting. One more, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I just want to go to Chris and see if he's got any comments on that this evening. Mr. Lee.
To you, Your Worship, to Councillor Bodner. We will contact the Parks crews first thing in the morning to see what the issue is with the volleyball nets at Centennial. And I know the speed study that you were referring to has been referred to staff. So once we have comments, we'll be getting back.
Thanks, Mr. Lee. Okay. Councillor.
One more. On the weekend, I was called by one of the local farmers in Ward 4, and he was talking to our grass cutter out there, and he was informed that the city was no longer cutting the sides of the roads on unimproved roads in Ward 4. He certainly was upset, and I've contacted some of the other farmers out there that have large acreage, and they're going to get back to me with their thoughts on it. Anyways, I just wonder whether you might be able to comment on that, Chris.
Mr. Lee.
Your Worship, actually, what we've done is we've reassessed that scenario, and the grass cutting contractor will be cutting those roads as normal, and we will be assessing the dollar value as the budget compares to the actual works being done. And if there are any issues near the end of the year and running over budget, we will get back to council and inform them on the situation.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got two quick things. First off, apparently the nice dry spring we've had has made the gravel roads out in Ward 4 particularly miserable and dusty. So the good news is that I was talking to one of the fellows at Public Works today, and he tells me that the dust suppression application is to start next Monday. Should be done over Monday and Tuesday, so relief is in sight for the dust people out there. It's been pretty bad. The other thing is out at Humberston Speedway on June 7th, which is a week from Thursday, they're inviting the neighbors of that area to come by for kind of an informal get together to talk to them about the upcoming events that are going to be held at the Speedway. It's an effort to kind of come to a meeting of the minds where to be a good neighbor and to be considerate. There's going to be additional racing this year, so the idea is to kind of work together to find ways to mitigate what could potentially be problematic for the neighbors in terms of noise and that kind of upset. So to their credit, they want to kind of get out ahead of that. This weekend coming, there is going to be racing Friday night as well as Sunday. There's going to be a new thing starting out there, flat track motorcycle racing. So since that's a new thing, you know, it's good to be in touch with those neighbors and everybody kind of get their heads together and hopefully come up with solutions rather than button heads. So that will be June 7th at Humberston Speedway up on the 2nd floor at 7 p.m. And immediate neighbors to the track are invited to come and meet with the owners, Linda Costco and Bob, I think. It is the manager out there. So I think it also put in like some flyers and mailboxes out there as well. So it'd be really appreciated if the press could just put a little blurb in so that hopefully some of the Ward 4 folks will kind of be aware of that's coming, and they'll experience, you know, the racing that will happen this weekend. Hopefully some people will go to it and enjoy it, I hope. Anyway, that's all I have. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Butters. Councillor Danch.
Thank you. I guess we'll pick on Chris tonight. Just a quick note, if you could get someone to take a look around Apollo and Meadowlark there, it's not high grass on the mediums, it's like high grass on the mediums. Probably hasn't been cut at all this year. I know they're vacant lots, but someone owns those lots and they need to cut her down a little bit. If you could look after that, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Lee, that's fine.
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Danch, we'll put that on the agenda and see just what the story is with regards to why that hasn't been cut yet. Things are growing quickly this year, but I know they're trying to keep up with it.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a couple of requests. One is in regards to, I understand the sensor is broken at the splash pad at H.H. Knoll Park. And I wondered if we had a price from somebody as how much these sensors cost and why we wouldn't have a spare part. Why do we have to order it and wait for it to come in? If somebody could give me an idea, are they $5,000? Are they so exorbitant that we can't have a spare part? Because I think it's kind of ridiculous that splash pad's broken down and we have no idea when that part's coming in. So if someone could answer me, I'd like to know the cost of one of those.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Lee.
Through you, Your Worship, the Councillor Kenny, I've been informed that the parts should be here on Thursday to fix it this time. That's what they told me in the last email. Yeah. I'm hoping they're true to their word. And we'll investigate spare parts.
Yeah, I just think it's important that we keep at least one spare. So if it breaks down, we don't have to wait. We have staff here that can replace it right away. And my second request is in regards to an additional handicap spot, I guess just south of the ice box. I was enjoying a nice little stroll there and got my ice cream, and I happened to run into a couple, and they asked me if there's a possibility of having another handicap spot there. It would just be one next. There's one right next to the fence, but there's nothing on the opposite side. So either another one next to the fence or one just south of the ice box. I think that would be great. There's only one there for that entrance, and it would be really great if we could have a second one. And either the same side by the fence or next to the ice box. It was just a couple getting a handicapped child out and asked me if that was possible. So I said I would bring it forward.
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Lee.
To you, Your Worship, to Councillor Kenny, I will bring that up to staff and we'll investigate.
Okay, that's great.
The location is for that.
Great, thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Lee. Chris, we have East Village Action Committee has actually asked me to come in and speak about this. We are waiting for a fence to come down on the East Village Park. The locates have been done. That has been done on there. The fences need to come down. We've arranged for a company to come and take the berms down, but we have two problems there. One, they won't come in until the fence is down, and two, where are they going to go with the earth? There was a problem with that being moved. There is a community member that is thinking about having it transported onto their property now in order to get this done, because there are community groups lined up wanting to use the park, and these things have to be done. So if we could just get a date as to when the fence will come down, that would certainly get us started.
Mr. Lee.
To Your Worship, from the last correspondence I've had, we were looking at a site to store the earth materials for the time being until we can get clearance on those circumstances that may be with it. And with regards to the fencing, I don't know a specific date yet or time when that will be, but once we do, you'll be the first to know.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Peter. A couple of months ago, I'd asked for a report on the financial report on the build of the new Health and Wellness Center. Is there any chance we could get a detailed report that encompasses where we are in fundraising, all the order changes that have been processed, what the cost of those is, if it's going to run into a cost overrun on the budgeted amount? If not, that's fine. But just to let us know where we are. I've had a couple of people ask me, just by driving by, I don't know if they're builders or not, but they just thought that the build would be farther along than it is, that the building might be already enclosed, and I didn't know from a building perspective if that's good or bad. So just, I guess, financially where we are. The biggest thing I would like to know is on the fundraising side, where we stand on that with the bricks and the seats and things like that. And then also on the order changes and what we've spent to date and what we can look forward to. Thanks.
Mr. Sinez? Was that not presented at the last committee meeting? That's what I thought.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The update, our consultants, they do an update at our advisory meeting, and they did do one, I believe, last week or the week before. There was one done, but there is a report that staff is going to be preparing an information report on a number of different facets of the Health and Wellness Center. One will be the cost breakdown and where it stands time-wise, budget-wise, and sponsorships and so on. So that's something that staff we were discussing it just last week, and trying to find appropriate timeframes to bring them together. We are slowly bringing different reports to council. There's one on for tonight, so we're bringing different information reports, and we're trying to bring them at different stages of time to inform council. But there'll be an overall report, and the financial aspect of that will be part of that report. I'm not sure what. Hopefully next council meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Any further new business, members? With none, members of staff, any updates? Mr. O'Hall.
Your Worship, the Intermunicipal Board held a pre-hearing today in respect of the Nyon Oil Inc. application. Our lawyer was there, Mr. Richardson, the lawyer and consultant, Mr. Ayers and Mrs. Santo were there representing Nyon, and the regional legal counsel was here, Michael Kine, and senior planner, vice planner for the region was here. There were about 30 residents here, and notice had been given by Nyon as directed by council for the June 13th special council meeting at 6:30. As well, there is also an open house beginning at 4 o'clock in that same day. They will be presenting all the information to council and the public. At today's meeting, the lawyers all agreed on consent, and the board agreed that the September 2012 Intermunicipal Board hearing would be rescheduled to April 2013. And that purpose was on consent of everybody, so that all of the reports can be appropriately and properly completed. Mr. Richardson, the counsel for the city, made it very clear that the city's position is and continues to be that it does not support the application and that it did not approve any official plan or zoning. Of course, everyone knows Nyon has lodged the appeal. It will be before the board, and the board will hear it outside of council's, I guess, effective or jurisdiction. Nonetheless, the fact is that the board will want all of this information, and they are proceeding with the studies. On May the 15th, the city received stacks of studies, and those studies have been placed on the city's website under Energy Park. It's a main function heading under the city. They are huge files, and we broke them down so that somebody's access to the website won't get blocked or locked because of the size. There's a lot of appendices in that on the website. As well, Your Worship, members of council, we supplied a paper copy of all of the reports at the public library, and they are available in the reference materials section. We also gave the library 5 DVDs of all of the studies, and in accordance with council direction, we are prepared to provide DVDs to anybody that wants a copy of all of the reports. Everything seemed to go fine. We were done basically by 12:30. The next hearing, a pre-hearing, which again will be procedure and all of that, will be in January, I believe, the 21st, and the hearing scheduled the second week of April 2013. That's the status of it right now, and the presentation for council on the 13th will be proceeding. In accordance with the procedure bylaw, the clerk will be advertising this special council meeting. We will also be advertising the open house at 4 o'clock in case anybody wants to come in. And that night will be, Your Worship, public meeting of council to consider the information that, in accordance with council's last recommendation direction, that information is going to be, hopefully, the final plan. That's where it's sitting.
Great, thank you, Mr. Howell. Any comments or questions on that? Members of council? Councilor Butters?
Yes, I was just wondering if, was it identified during this hearing that all people that have signed up in the past will then again be notified for what's to come? Everyone that's been on the list?
Your Worship, the board directed that there would be no further notice by the board on these dates. However, I believe, Your Worship, that you will probably receive direction, and I'm sure that you're going to require staff to make sure that everybody on that list gets notice of those hearing dates. But the board actually indicated that no further notice of these would be determined. I would be remiss if I didn't come to council. This council has been very transparent and wants everybody to see every documentation and everything that's going on. And I would, Mr. Mayor, even direction tonight, if you provide it, that despite the board offering no notice of those hearings, that council ensure that notice be given to all of those people on the list. There's about 300 names. And as well, we added a couple of new names today. They would also be on the list. So everybody that was signed up 4 years ago at the last pre-hearing and the pre-hearing before that, we have all of their names, and we've ensured that everything's going out to them. And we would be recommending to council that you provide direction that we do that anyway.
Just for clarification, if I may, Councilor Butters, I did hear the chair, the presiding chair this today of the OMB hearing state that although you're correct with respect to giving notice, anyone that had put their name down, including their address, both the former as well as those new or names and addresses that came forward today, would at the very least receive minutes of today's proceedings. And those minutes do indicate the dates of which the proceedings will continue next April. So they do have that opportunity, if in fact they read those minutes, to recognize when those dates will be. But if members of council do or would like or have a desire for us to also send notice out, then that would be up to council, and I'll take direction from council with respect to that. Councilor Butters?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would absolutely like that to happen and that direction be given, please.
Okay, do I have a seconder to that, please? Councilor Bodner? Are there any questions or comments to that? Members of staff, are we clear on that? Okay. No comments or questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Howell. Thank you, Councilor Butters and Bodner. We'll now move on to the adoption of the minutes of the 13th meeting regular of Committee of the Whole, dated May 14, 2012. Mover and seconder, please. Mover and seconder. Councilor Danch, Councilor Doucette. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to the consideration of the items that were lifted. We'll start off with item 1. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Department of Planning and Development report number 2012-35, public meeting for the proposed building permit fee structure be approved, recommending the report number 2012-35, public meeting for the proposed building permit fee structure be received for information.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder to that, please? Councilor Doucette. Before we go on to questions or comments, I believe Mr. Cronia has a presentation to make. Yep, if you want to come on up, Ernie, and the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and the public. The purpose of the public meeting is to discuss the requirement for increase or change in building permit fees. Now, the report that came to council on, I believe it was April 23rd, was a report that brought to council two things. Basically, a new building bylaw, because our currently building bylaw is way out of date. It's not current with the current Building Code Act and the Ontario Building Code. And the second thing was the proposed increases in building permit fees. Now, the Bill 124, which was passed by the province some time ago, gave or directed council that they could only implement fees that would pay for the actual administration of the Building Code Act and the Ontario Building Code. So what we've looked at here is actually, rather than look at 100% recovery cost for the first go around, we looked at 94%. We thought that at our first look at building permit fees, that trying to get 100% cost recovery would be way too much in the initial go-around. We thought that 94% would be something reasonable, and that in future years we could look at upgrading that as council saw fit to try to reach that 100% goal of complete cost recovery. Now, certain things to keep in mind with these new building permit fees. If you take, for example, a house, currently we're charging 80 cents a square foot for a building permit for a house, and now we're talking here strictly building permit fees. We're not talking about all the other fees that appear on a schedule of fees for a building permit. For example, we're not talking about development charges, we're not talking about parkland dedication, we're not talking about fees that are required for somebody to connect to city services. We're talking strictly three components, basically: the building, the plumbing, and the heating, ventilating, and air conditioning components that are put together to build a house. Now, currently we're assessing a fee for each of those components: 80 cents for example, a single-family dwelling, 80 cents per square foot for the building portion, 8 cents a fixture for the plumbing, and then a $75 flat fee for the HVAC, the heating, ventilating, air conditioning. In the new bylaw, we're looking at $1 a square foot for the building, but we're adding to that, or we're including with that, the plumbing as well as the HVAC components. So when you look at it, and I've put together just a couple simple slides to show you what effect this is having. I mean, you look at all the nice tables that we have, all the hard work that the finance department put into the reviewing the fees and the costs, the direct costs as well as indirect costs. But what it's going to boil down to is, what is this going to do to our fees? So if you look at this first example, is a single family dwelling at 1,200 square feet. So under the current regime, we're looking at 80 cents a square foot at 1,200 square feet, so $960 plus 120, for plumbing, and 75 for the HVAC portion, which gives us a total of $1,155. Now, if you look at the proposed fees, we're looking at $1 a square foot, but as I said before, it covers plumbing and HVAC. So what you come down to is a total of $1,200. So that gives you a difference of $45 increase for the single family dwelling of 1,200 square feet. So not a big increase, just something modest. I think the homeowners and builders can absorb. We can look at another example, a 2,000 square foot dwelling. Under the current regime, $1,600 for the building, $160 for plumbing, $75 for HVAC, for a total of $1,835. Under the proposed fees, you'll see that we're looking at $2,000. This is an increase of $165. And that's a 2,000 square foot house. Normally there may be an additional couple of inspections, so the $165 is going to cover a little more than the $45 increase on a 1,200 square foot house. So it's reasonable, or at least we think so. Looking at another example, an industrial building, again the same components, and why that came out blue I don't know, but the machine thought that I was citing an email address or something. I just couldn't get that. I scratched my head and still found nothing. But we come at a total of at 45 cents a square foot, plus plumbing, plus HVAC, $5,128. When we look at that under the proposed fees, it's $6,500, and oh, well, that's actually $1,372. That's quite a bit of an increase. But that can be explained because under the new Building Code Act and the Ontario Building Code, we are now required to do mandatory inspections for all projects. It was in the past that we would get engineered drawings, and that was really nice. We'd drop in the site and have coffee or something at, you know, these big commercial projects once in a while, and that would be fine. We get the engineer reports at the end, and everything would be hunky-dory. But now we actually have to stop in and do inspections on a regular basis. We have to do mandatory inspections, so it will cost a lot more for the department to cover these inspections. So that's why this increase seems like it's a lot, but it's not really. So basically that's it. This is the effect that the increase in fees are going to have. not something substantial when you look at single-family dwellings and similar projects, but something I think that the building community can absorb, and the taxpayers won't have to worry about covering as much of the building permit fees. And eventually, in 1 or 2 years, we can look at 100% cost recovery, and then the people that require building permits will be paying for their own permits instead of being subsidized by the taxpayers. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ernie. Just a point of clarification, Ernie. On that slide right there, it says difference of 1372 for single-family dwelling. I'm assuming that should read for an industrial building?
Sorry, that's a typo.
Okay,
It should be for industrial building, yes.
Great, thank you. Members of council, any questions or comments? Councilor Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Ernie. You cited the figure of 94% cost recovery. What are we moving from? What percentage of recovery?
Ernie?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we're moving from approximately 75% right now.
Councilor? That's fine. Any further questions or comments, members? With none, Mr. Cornier? Well done.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Members of the public, are there any questions or comments from you regarding this report? With no questions or comments, members of council to the report, any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. Members of council will now move on to item 3. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. That the Department of Community and Corporate Services, Community Services Division Report Number 2012-16, subject Harbor Master Building Lease 2012, be approved, recommending that Council approves the proposal from the Corporation of Professional Great Lakes Pilots to rent the north side of the Harbor Master Building for $850 plus HST and utilities from June the 1st, 2012 until May 31st, 2013.
Thank you, Councillor. We have a seconder to that, please. Councillor Elliott. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you once again, Your Worship. I see we have this request in front of us, and yet also this week we received, all of us received, many letters from members of the BIA asking for the opportunity, I guess, to open the washrooms there for use to the tourists and customers who would go to the downtown core. So I would like to turn that over to you, Your Worship, because you had a great idea. And I think that it should be noted that that you came up with that idea, which I think is great.
we did.
And so that if you would just like to share that with everyone, because I'm certainly in support of it.
Thank you, Councillor. And I'll throw it out for perspective before I go to, I think Councillor Elliott's got the floor next. But there was thought given beyond the recommendation by staff, and I do appreciate staff for doing the work that you did and coming up with that recommendation. I know it was a long time coming with respect to all the people that you had to talk to, Gary. But yes, we did hear loud and clear throughout the past few years from the BIA with respect to using the Harbor Master Building, and in listening and therefore learning from the comments that we all had received from the BIA. I thought there might be an opportunity for a true partnership here between the BIA and the city by simply turning over the building to the BIA, not in full ownership, but in operation, to therefore utilize, as the BIA requires, with respect to utilizing it as an information outlet for different information about the community, primarily tourism, and those that are with respect to BIA activities, but as well for washroom facilities, etc., that a lot of our tourists and those that are visiting that part of town do require from time to time. I think what can go with that, and as a caveat to that, as per the recommendation that's been given to us today, because of course the pilots do utilize that facility as well, that the BIA also work with the Pilots Association to try to make accommodation for them. I think for the most part, they don't live there. They don't utilize that facility as much as people may think. They utilize it when they need it, when the pilots are coming in, especially in inclement weather. So therefore, what I would recommend council consider this evening, beyond the recommendation that from staff, is to in fact allow the BIA to take over control of the building for those uses that I outlined and that they outlined, quite frankly, and also allow the BIA to sit down with the pilots associations, both associations, to work out an amicable solution or arrangement, would be a more proper word, for that building to be utilized by all. I think what we're recognizing now is that there's a lot more uses in that part of town than there used to be. And with the infrastructure that we have, and as well the budget restraints that we have, I think looking at partnerships will accommodate our budget, but as well will accommodate the uses that the BIA requires and the pilots require. So I throw that out for discussion for council's consideration as per this report. I know we have two members of the BIA here this evening. I'm assuming, Bob, that you're here for this report. And by all means, if there's any questions or comments, let's work this out tonight. If we have an opportunity to hammer this thing out tonight, then by all means, let's do it so that all parties can move forward. Councillor?
Thank you, Your Worship. I think that idea works, and I think most of us can support that. I just want to make absolutely sure that they've approached us first, the Association of the Pilots, and I think that we should make sure that they have that space with the caveat to say to the BIA now, who's asking for the other part of it, the other side of it, that they maintain that as well, because in our letters that we did receive, they all said that they would maintain it, make sure it was kept clean. Actually, so I just want to make sure that that stays the way it is, because I think we can work out, like you said, a great partnership here. And I would support that idea. Thanks.
Gary, do you want me to comment to that? I believe that space is the same size, same site. So there's only so much space that we have there. So go ahead.
It's a little bit smaller on the north side than it is on the south side. So right now, Cooper's Marine is renting the south side, the Pilots Boat Association. This is another association that Cooper Marine actually takes these pilots out to the boats or whatever. So they want to use that for exactly inclement weather, whatever, waiting for the ships. So, but there may be an opportunity to meet with the BIA and the association to see if we can put them both in the same pace.
Okay. Thank you, Gary. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to ask for leave of council to have Bob and Mike come up and speak, but I think by the nodding of their heads to your comments, they probably don't really have to. And this goes back to a couple of BIA meetings ago, and I'll just explain how we got here. It was originally brought up at the BIA that we wanted to take over the north side of the Harbor Master Building for a tourist information booth. And we'd partner with anybody that wanted to. We were hoping to get, if we could bring Stephen and his gang in from Main Street down on the off days, we could have somebody, sit around for a couple hours and hand out information. And if we were doing that, we would allow people on an emergency basis to use the washroom, not throw it open to be a public washroom and, have to redo it to be handicapped and anything like that. The basis of it was purely from a tourism perspective, is that we've got a building that sits vacant that we could utilize in partnership with the city, that we could have somebody down in an area where we promote endlessly West Street to come shopping. We've got public docks for boaters. What better way to promote the city than have people down where the action is, because we don't have any tourist information around. So we could do this. Kind of got sidetracked, and it was more about the washroom than it was about the information booth. And it's at the original BIA meeting where it was proposed, it was about getting information out and having somebody sit in there from 12 till 3 or 4 on weekdays, maybe even Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then it kind of got lost in everything else. The proposal that, Mayor, that you put forward, as I'm judging by the nodding, fantastic. I think we take that and run, talk with the Great Lakes Pilots Associations. I know that after being to 2 of their dinners the last 2 years, great guys, going to be pretty easy to work with. I don't think they're wanting much use out of it other than guys sitting for an hour or two waiting for a taxi or the boat to come in. I'm thinking that that's probably what they're looking for. If we can negotiate with them and get it and use it for what the BIA intended to use it for, strictly as tourist information, and that's pamphlets and flyers, maps, everything about the city, I think it'd be a win-win for everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Members of council, any further comments or questions? Councillor Bodnar, then I go to Demeray, and then back to Kenny.
Mr. Mayor, seeing as how we have a couple of building officials here, one leaving and one coming in, and you know how the odd time things go off the rail, is there any problem opening this public washroom up without it being handicapped accessible? You know, it's not changing hands necessarily, someone's just taken over, but I'd hate to see a report come back at the last minute saying you can't do it because of that. So has anybody thought of that?
Mr. Howe?
Your worship, to completely separate the use, we'd probably want to rent or lease the building to the BIA so that they'd actually have possession of it. They are partially a public entity, but I understand the legislation has changed with respect to provision of washrooms for accessibility. They've lightened up the rules a little bit in the past 4 or 5 months. We're working on a report on that, and I don't know if it's come through the building office yet or not, but I understand they're lightening up a little bit on it. But right off the cuff, they're probably better to speak to it than I am.
Any comments, Ernie? I'm afraid to ask. Can you turn your microphone on, Dan?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
No problem.
At this point in time, there's no legislation that would make them retrofit the facility retroactively. So it would only be the municipality's own documents that would require any kind of upgrade of the facility if that were the policy of the municipality. We've adopted the FADS document as the municipality's standards for accessibility, which is over and above the requirements of the Ontario Building Code, but that only applies right now to new facilities. So if there's an existing facility out there, and even though it may change hands, it's not necessary to upgrade it. But as soon as you start doing renovations or make alterations, then the regulations would kick in.
Good, thank you, Ernie. That's fine, Councillor. Good. Councillor Demeray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say that I certainly could support this. It's a very good idea to do it this way, to create this partnership, so long as that there's no more cost onto the city. And I could not support taking any of the tourist information system that we have set up right now on Main Street to take in any of that and move it. I think that needs to stay there because that's the main thoroughfare through the city. And that's where tourists are going to stop first. If you take it away from there, you may not get them to come downtown to see anything else. So you have to have, if the BIA wants to put something in that building, that's wonderful. But you still have to have the existing one on Main Street.
Okay. I think, yeah, I think what Councillor, not to put words in your mouth, Councillor, I think what he meant was just to augment the facility on Main Street. I'll let you speak on that, Councillor. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're not talking about taking any of the facilities as in the TV screens or anything that they have set up. Well, if we could take one person, there's days when I've been in there and there's no tourists in there and they've got 3 or 4 people. And we're looking at, you know what, on a partnership. Right now, the Chamber of Commerce staffs that building, and their staff is there basically acting as tourist information guides as well. And Edith, I think, is there full-time in the summer, if I'm not mistaken. So they do offer a service when they're there as well. Plus, last year we had 3 students that were there. So I'm just going to throw this out to Stephen, just because he'll know the background. And with his budget this year, they may not even be there.
Correct.
So we'll ask.
Stephen will speak on that. Stephen, go ahead. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pardon me. The scheduling that's done for the Visitor Information Center on Main Street is to maximize the hours from 9 a.m. till 8 p.m. I believe it is. So it's not in no way is it a standard 35-hour work week. And the times when there would be up to 2 students scheduled in there, 2, not 3 or 4, would simply be for the overlap of the shifts, so that they're relieving one person, so one person can go for lunch. There might be a 1-hour overlap between the lunch schedules. The challenge that we do have this year is that our grant from the federal government this year is covering 50% of minimum wage, whereas in the past it covered 100% of minimum wage. So the amount of money that the city is providing for the part-time salary this year is the same but the amount of money we're getting from the federal government has been cut in half. So right away we're worried about how we're going to be able to keep the center open the same hours as last year, and whether the money will be expended before the end of the year. Not only are we keeping it open during the hours of the summer, but it's also keeping the facility open on Saturdays and Sundays throughout the spring, throughout the fall, when the Chamber of Commerce is closed. I believe the third item that was touched on was around the staffing with the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce is on an ongoing basis, as the weather starts to improve, contacting me with concerns about the number of folks that are coming in asking their staff questions, which is why in the summer months, May through September, May through the end of August, Labor Day weekend in September, which is why we do have a student in there in addition to the Chamber of Commerce employee being in there, because the Chamber of Commerce does regularly express concerns about the pressures on that individual's time. So that's why it's set up to have a student there as well as the Chamber of Commerce person. However, this year, given the constraints that are forced upon us based on our federal grants, which are smaller this year than last year, we likely will need to rely on the Chamber of Commerce for several hours during the day, most definitely over the lunch break, because we won't be able to bring a second student in to offset the one student's mandated lunch break.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. But I think Councillor Demeray, this is a perfect segue for Councillor Demeray with respect to the ambassador program. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're in the process right now of developing an ambassador program that would, with time, replace the dollars spent on employing people for the visitors information booths by using volunteers that are city ambassadors to go in there and be able to provide all these informational services. But it does take time to develop. We're in the process of getting it done. Our first load of ambassadors will be presented to council very soon, and we'll start from there. So come down the line, I'm sure that working with the BIA, we're going to be able to provide some volunteers, but right today, that's not possible.
Great. Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions or comments? Councillor Bodner?
What happens to the $850 that the pilots were going to pay? Does that just go away now, or is the pilots going to work something out with the BIA, or I didn't hear any of that conversation. So.
Okay, well, let's get to that in a second. But I'm going to go to Councillor Kenny first. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I was hoping that the $850 would offset this person that they want. Why should, if they're really truly taking, let's not complicate it. They asked, every single email I got said, we want washrooms downtown. They didn't ask for anything else. All the emails, they said, we want public washrooms because we don't want them walking into our business and using the washroom, which I thought was kind of dumb, because if they got that person in your business, you think you'd be glad if they're spending dollars, you'd let them use the washroom, but hey, who am I? So I would think that if I owned a business and you came in and you'd be happy, right? But what do I know? I don't have a business. So now let's give them the building with the washrooms, make sure our pilots are taken care of in that one side, the two of them can work it out, and let's all be happy. Happy.
Thank you, Councillor. What I was going to say is that for those that are watching on COGECO, or those that are in the gallery that may not have a copy of the report, Councillor Bodner is correct. The report does offer, the actual tender or the RFP offered $850 a year, Gary, to rent the facility, which, Councillor Kenny, when you look at it throughout a whole year, isn't all that much. But I think that the whole premise behind this is to save the tenants the dollars, the $850 per year, where they can reinvest that into the facility itself. So if in fact the BIA, instead of being charged a rental, or the pilots for that matter, instead of being charged a rental, it's a partnership that takes the financial burden from the taxpayer, and that's quite frankly why it got cut from the budget process in the first place. It takes also the burden off the user to therefore put any updates or any capital upgrades that the facility would otherwise need. Now, it's not going to happen overnight, but I think there's an opportunity here to ultimately, over time, for the partnership between the BIA and the pilots, to in fact put those upgrades in place based on the money they would otherwise be charged for rent. Once again, I think it wouldn't happen overnight, but over time, in that partnership, that opportunity does present itself. Okay? Councillor Steele.
So in essence, Your Worship, we should defeat what's here.
Exactly.
And then have Councillor Kenny bring up
exactly
your suggestion plus what else we've
That's
discussed.
Right.
Okay?
That's right.
Thank you.
Mr. Sinez.
Just for some additional information for council for clarity too, is the one side, the south side, which we currently rent out. Just so you know, the revenue that is in our budget for that is about $1,900 for the rental of that space, and then the north side was the $850, which would have been a new rental going forward.
Okay. Further comments or questions to the motion that's on the floor? Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, Peter, when does that contract expire?
Mr. Sinez.
It's on an annual basis.
That's not what I asked. When does it expire?
Year end.
So December 31st.
Yeah.
So if in your motion you could ask that once that expires that too be passed over to the BIA, then the three organizations can work together to come to an agreement.
Actually, if I may, Councillor, what I would do is actually have that dialogue happen now with those sure. different partners, instead of waiting until the end of the year. Have them at the table right now to discuss an overall partnership. Because what I can envision here is that if you have the partners on board, you know, and even with the city, if there's budgetary needs in the future, that can all be brought forward in partnership and in consideration, versus just having one person or everybody working in silos trying to make those things happen individually. Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We haven't really heard from the members of the BIA, and I wondered if they wanted a chance to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Butters, and that was the last thing I was going to offer. If Mr. Porter, or if you want to come on up, Mr. Porter, as president of the BIA, you're more than welcome. Or Mr. Hopper, if you want to join him, come on up. You guys can plug your businesses too, so get up here. Get up there. Mr. Porter, go ahead. If you just want to press the gray button there. Bob,
councillors, staff. This request by the BI seems to have taken a few turns along the way here. I'm getting a little bit confused on it. We went down this road earlier in the year there requesting the use of this building. And I think I made the initial contact with Gary at that time. Then there was discussions going on between Gary and our marketing person. Last Friday I got an email from our marketing person. She's gotten an email from Gary indicating that they're looking at renting that out to the Great Lakes Pilots Association, and he was concerned about the money. He didn't want to lose the 800 something out of his budget, understandable. But originally, at our first meeting, when we discussed this, it was all about tourism, nothing to do with the washrooms. That developed later on. You know, you think, okay, we can get that. Hey, there's a washroom there. We don't have public washrooms downtown other than City Hall, which are very limited, only in the daytime, not on the weekends or evenings. But this is what we were pursuing. The washrooms entered the picture. Well, it's there. Maybe we can use it. It's been used most years anyways. Regulations, you know, it doesn't meet the standards and all that, but it seems to be used every year. But I like what's being discussed tonight now, possibly a partnership with the Great Lakes. They can pay the $850 and we'll share it with them. Just joking. But if that can be worked out, that's great. I just want to emphasize the fact it wasn't all about washrooms. But if they're there and we can use them, fine. But it's about tourism. You know, last week, I believe it was Thursday, I was crossing the bridge, the park on the other side, Seaway Park. That place was filled with cyclists from Buffalo, a club, a group, Americans coming over, they're going to spend some money here. Instead of all the Canadians going over and spending all their money in the U.S., now we're going to get a chance to pick up a few bucks. But they need facilities, there's no doubt about it. The north end's covered. We have Humberson Hall, which is equipped. Apparently, with the skateboard park going in there, there will be facilities there as well. Yes. And our sports complex will have public washrooms as well. So the north end is loaded. In the south end, there's nothing unless they want to go up to the marina, but you can't ask tourists to, you know, venture up there. So I think if we can partner with the group, Great Lakes Pilots, and share that, that'd be great. Also, it was mentioned about staffing it, and we were looking at ambassadors, retired people. And we have a source, we think we can produce them at no cost to anybody, and they would enjoy being there a couple hours or half a day or whatever doing this and serving all our tourists that are coming through. And as I mentioned about this bicycle club, I mean, last week I saw another group, a large group. We're getting more and more. And it's all almost becoming a world-class situation as far as cyclists go. They're coming from all over. We got to recognize that. We also got to recognize the fact that the merchants downtown are having a tough time. And there's cross-border shopping has become increasingly large. There was an article in the Globe and Mail last week. There our federal government, in their wisdom, and I've told Canadians you can bring 4 times as much across the border now, and they don't even collect the tax. So it's making it very tough for us. We need everything to bring them here. If we start bringing Americans here, it'd be nice, because we don't get Americans anymore. I can remember when we had Americans all the time in my store. You don't get them anymore. Their dollar's not worth much, and 9/11 and everything else screwed it up. So anyway, I know you all have received emails, and there was one from our retired newspaper editor, and Gail Todd. It was very good, what she said. And if you didn't read it, please read it. But we need help downtown a lot, and this is one thing that's going to help. And again, I say if we can share it, that's fine, but we need that spot there. Please consider it. Thank you. Mike, I don't know, anything to add?
Thanks, Bob.
I think you pretty well covered it all.
Okay. Well, for those members of council or the gallery or even COGECO that don't recognize Bob Porter is the owner and proprietor of Davie Stationaries over on Clarence Street, and Mike Hopper, who is the owner and proprietor, along with his entire family, of Candy Safari over on West Street. So by all means, for all you folks that are watching, pass the word, because these folks have some great stores in our downtown area, and I think Bob, you hit it right on the head with respect to the difference between going across the border or going shopping elsewhere in comparison to coming here to our small part of the world to do that. And that is the uniqueness, the experience. And I hear that from so many people when they come here to Port Colborne. That's not something you can actually put on paper or film on a video. You have to really be here to feel it. It's just a great experience to be here along the waterfront, along a roadway or roadways, whether it's in the north end or the south end, or down the Marina, West Street, Clarence Street, King Street, Main Street. Just simply to be able to go along an operating and working canal and see a ship that's coming from somewhere in the Midwest, Duluth or Superior, going down to another part of the world and carrying product. To sit there and just reflect on that along our waterways with a handful of candy and of course an ice cream in their hand from Candy Safari, or a refreshment from one of the restaurants down on West Street, or even your place, Bob, with the stationary items that you have, is unique. And I think that uniqueness is what draws people here, versus just simply parking your car in a parking lot at a mall and going for a walk, a very cold walk, mind you, in a mall that may not offer that entire experience that we offer here in Port Colborne. So ultimately, what I want to say to you folks, BIA, but as well your individual businesses, is thank you, because it's you folks that are actually on the ground, on the front line, enabling and offering that unique experience that we have here in Port Colborne. So all we're trying to do is our small part by contributing to that, in a small way, by what we're considering tonight, and hopefully that meets your expectations. And that's one small part, but as we work together, hopefully those parts get bigger. So, well done, guys.
Thank you. Just one more comment, if I may, direct it at Councillor B. Kenny. I'm not going to be nasty.
I know it's coming.
No, she commented on all the emails that she had been receiving, as well as the rest of you, and from all the BIA members. It was more than the BIA members. The Chamber, President of the Chamber also did, and she had a very good commentary as well. And I want that, noted that it's not just the BIA. The Chambers see the problem. They want to be part of the solution. They're with us. They're on board with us. And just to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Mike. I appreciate your time here this evening. Members of Council, we do have the original motion on the floor. As Councillor, I believe, Steele mentioned earlier, to move on in the direction that Council has been discussing, that motion will have to be defeated with the new motion being brought forward. So with no more questions or comments, we'll go to the original motion. All those in favor? All those opposed? So that motion will be lost. Councillor Kenny.
I put it up because the mayor came up with a brilliant idea. So now this will be, I guess it's the same, that the Harbor Master Building Lease 2012 be approved, recommending that council approves an agreement or a proposal from the BIA to partner with the Corporation of Profession Great Lakes Pilots to work with a partnership, and what's the other group? I'm sorry.
Cooper Marine.
Cooper Marine, to share the Harbor Master Building in an amicable fashion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. What I would add to that, Gary, is that you facilitate that discussion. Have the parties sit down at the table between Cooper, Great Lakes, as well as the BIA, and try to facilitate an agreement between the three parties. As a matter of fact, I would go as far, Council, to consider this being a multi-year, not just a 1 year, because of course there might be capital considerations, and no one wants to put capital dollars into a facility they're going to have for 1 or 2 years. So I would enter that into discussion as well, so that therefore there's a better return on the amount of dollars that any 1 or 3 organizations may have to either today or in the future put toward capital improvements to that building. Actually, did you get all that? You have it all? You're pretty fast, eh? Questions or comments? I have Councillor Desmarais and then Councillor Bodner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to be sure that the agreement comes back to us to see before it,
That's the intent.
It goes in. Okay, and I would second that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bodner?
I just have a concern about the multi-year lease. What if this crashes and burns somehow? It doesn't really work out, and personally, I'd like to see something proven for the first year to see that this can work and come up with some ideas on what they might want to do with it. And if it works, I'd be the first one to stand up and say, let's do it again. But if we get into a multi-year situation and the parties don't get along too well or something, how do we resolve that after we've agreed to 2 or 3 years? But that's just my concern on that part of it.
Thank you, Councillor. My intent with throwing that in there, Councillor, is basically to have it part of the discussion. I know if it's me, that's one of the concerns that I would have. If in fact there's an expectation, or there may be an expectation, to put some capital dollars forward, you don't want to put a whole bunch of money forward and all of a sudden lose it the following year. So I'm not saying have it in there. I'm just saying have it discussed. So therefore it's done in all fairness with all parties. And quite frankly, I'll be very upfront. It also encourages capital improvements. It encourages it. And of course, in partnership, it takes the onus off the taxpayer. So I think both BIAs are expected to have monies from the BIA members to bring forward for different projects, and this is one of the projects that the BIA may want to consider in the future. Okay. Any questions or comments further to the motion? Ashley, you have all that? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you, members. Bob, Mike, thank you. Thank you for your time tonight. We'll now move on to item 4. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. That the Department of Community and Corporate Services Community Division's report number 2012-17, subject bridging Centennial Pool membership to Port Colborne YMCA memberships be approved, recommending that the report on bridging Centennial Pool aquatic memberships to the Port Colborne YMCA full privilege memberships be approved and the terms be incorporated into the programming services operating agreement between the city and the YMCA of Niagara.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder to that, please? Councillor Elliott, questions or comments? Councillor Kenny.
Thank you once again, Your Worship, and there are members of the YMCA here, Brian, who I know, who has come many times to hear us, and we all thought, what's going to happen to memberships at the Centennial Pool when they cease their operation and new facility opens? And I think it's addressed well in this. So Gary, thank you for working with them too, because I think it's important that that happen. The only question I did have in regards to the recommendation that we have in front of us is, it says that the members of the Centennial Pool as of March 31st, 2012 will be offered a minimum 6-month membership to the Port Colborne YMCA. Is that 6-month membership commence on the opening of the new facility?
Mr. Mary, that's correct. It's 6 months from the opening of the facility, minimum 6 months.
Okay. Further questions or comments? Gary, I'm going to give you a chance to go over this report. For those that are watching on COGECO, if you want to give it a brief summary so that way it's understood.
Yeah, certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor. One of the items was what happens to the people that are currently members of Centennial Pool when we move to the new Port Colborne YMCA. And as part of that, what we wanted to do was an opportunity to get those members a chance to try the new Y. So they've actually set up a couple different programs for them. What we're doing is there'll be a letter that'll be mailed out to all members that were members of the March 31st date, offering them a couple different things. One of the issues that or one of the things we've set up is a try the Y program or whatever. So they will actually get some Y passes. It's a member and friends pass, whatever, so they can use that at any of the Ys throughout Niagara or whatever to try some of the programs. But specifically, we've also set up what's called a splash and sip program at the Niagara Center in Welland. And we've set up 2 dates. It's Thursday, June 14th and Thursday, June 21st. And what we're doing is we're asking our members to contact the Y. They can go to the Welland Y for a member reception. They'll get a kind of a tour of the facility. They'll actually get a chance to try an aquafit and moderation class, so they'll take their bathing suit with them, try out that class and see how they like that. And then after the class, they'll be doing some coffee and muffins and allow the members at that time to ask questions to our Y staff. So we've set that up that they can actually, there's a person here that they can email and just kind of let them know that they're coming. So there's those 2 sessions to try out the Y. And again, there'll be some member passes that they'll get 2 3-visit passes that they can use at any of the Ys in the Niagara area. And again, it's just an opportunity. We really want to get them into the Y somewhere else to try it first, but then also when the 6-month membership gives them a great opportunity to try the Y here in Port Colborne at home. And it'll show them that right now, really a lot of the people, the only option we have are aquatic classes, because that's all we have. We don't have any gym classes, fitness classes, that type of stuff. When they get the membership, the 6-month membership to the Port Colborne YMCA, it'll be a full membership. So it'll be good for the aquatics, the gym, and the fitness area. So some people may just want to do the aquatics, and that's fine. But many members that are just doing aquatics now will have a chance to try something different that they don't have the option of doing now. So the Y really said, the biggest thing for them is to let's get the people in the building and let them try it, and then get them, a chance to kind of sell them on the benefits of the Y. So it's a great transitional period. I think it'll work quite well. From the people we spoke to, it sounds quite reasonable. So pretty excited. The Y's excited to be on board with us, and we're looking forward to it.
Great, thank you, Gary. Brian or Janice, I know you folks are sitting here very patiently and very courteous of you to come out tonight and listen to this one report, but I'll give you the opportunity as well. Anything you want to add to what Gary's already mentioned? If you want to come on up and take the opportunity. Janice, welcome.
I think this is a wonderful chance again for our partnership between the city and the Y to work together. I know that change can always be a challenging time for people, and this really is the way to help people transition through the change and do have an opportunity to try it out. I mean, sometimes you think that you may never want to go to a yoga class, and then you have a chance to experience with your friends in a brand new, wonderful facility that's fully accessible, and suddenly you're moving with the change and maintaining a healthy lifestyle, and really that's what it's all about.
Janice, thank you.
Thanks.
Members of council, any questions or comments? With none, all those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move on to, I'm going to go to item 12. Members, that actually is the next item anyways. Yes. Item 12, Councillor Doucette.
Engineering and Operations, Engineering Division Report number 2012-12, subject contract 2012-10, contract escape and BMX park located at lot 8B, approved, recommending that the council of the city of Colborne award contract 2012-10, construction of a skate and BMX park at Lock 8 Park to Pattern Concrete of Toronto, Ontario, as per option 3 above, for the total tendered price of $714,411.25 plus applicable taxes, and that the existing agreement between Land Inc. and the city be amended to include an upset limit of $36,638 excluding taxes for contract administration, and C, that the project be debentured in the amount of $807,377.45 excluding taxes through the Infrastructure Ontario Loan Program for a period of 30 years, and that the appropriate bylaws be drafted and submitted for execution by the mayor and city clerk.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have a seconder to that, please? Councillor Steele. Questions or comments? Councillor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. We've been through a pretty heavy-duty process here, and staff has done an excellent job at trying to make sure that we wind up with competitive bids. We winded up with 5 according to the report, which is excellent. I have met different people, and there are some individuals that are telling me, let's go for the whole thing. That's $870, almost $900,000. There are other people that are saying, no, it's way too much. Bottom line is, these kids have been waiting for at least 15 years. This is considered a sporting facility, no different than your soccer fields, your baseball fields. It is the same idea, and it is becoming more and more of a sport. And I believe that we need to somehow find a way to get that extra money to make sure that we build this thing and build it right the first time. We've already been through all our facilities, and it was indicated in the report, and there are things we're now fixing that we could have put in originally that we now have to put in now. But if we would have done it way back then, it would have cost us less. And I believe that if we do this correctly, I believe that we will have one of the best facilities in the peninsula. We will have probably the one that will be visited the most by the most children in the peninsula. There are people from Welland, Niagara Falls, all over right now that are just chomping at the bit. They want to get on this thing. They know what's coming. They've talked about it. Our own young individuals are going to these other facilities and talking it up, and they want them to come here as well. We need to do this, and we need to do it properly and correctly. and we need to do it this evening.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I totally am in favor of a skateboard park. However, not to the tune of $807,377. I don't know how we came to that amount. When I look at our report that we got back in, it was 2012-07 was the report number. It was brought to us March 26th. And it says that the Council of the City of Port Colborne approved Design 3, which I really like, with Land League for the total cost of $700,000, which includes design, contract administration, and construction. In our third point here, or point B, it says that the existing agreement between Land Inc. and the city be amended to include an upset limit of $36,638 for contract administration. So how can contract administration now be added when it was told me it was added in the first place in that $700,000? So then I looked, and that point A says 714. So I thought, you know what, I can live with that. That's fair. You know, that's a fair amount. And then in our report, when I look, there are items here that it says the base bid does not include any provisional items such as a sunshade structure. I'm very much in favor of the stainless steel. I look out here at our front entrance where we never put stainless steel, and all you see is rust rings, and I certainly don't want that. I really, even though I love that color and all that stuff, and we all know what happens to that facility after it's up, because kids, that's the thing about a skateboard park, right? It's artistic design appears on those things. Artistic design. So that structure there, you can skateboard to your heart's content and have a ball, and it should lower that price. There has to be some way, because I'm in favor of this park, but there has to be some way we can either get a partner, like I think it mentions that in here, that there's a chance of getting a partner in here to one of the, where does it say? Someplace in here. A marine partner, yeah, thank you. And if that can happen, that's great. I certainly would support the A part. I don't think they should get another dime, Land Inc., because they got their money in their first bid, like it said. And when a base started at, I guess I want to ask staff too. It says that a geotechnical investigation was done for almost $4,000. And yet they're telling us that now, based on that geotechnical investigation, that they had to go right down to bedrock. Well, anybody that knows Port Colborne, you don't have to dig too far before you hit rock. It's true. We're rock. So I guess my question to staff or to somebody who can answer that question for me, I want to know how we jumped from 700,000 to 807,000, and if someone could answer that lovely question, then.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thanks.
Mr. Makins. Mr. Makins, Mr. Lee, or Mr. Sinez, one of the three.
I'll take a part, and then Mr. Lee has anything. I know part of it, again, I think the geotech or whatever, I know Mr. Lee probably knows a little bit more about that or whatever, but I think it said it added a cost, whatever, by going down to bedrock or whatever. That was, now they have to putting more fill in, so that increased some of the pricing in that itself.
But just to add to that, yeah. You know, some parts of the city, you're right on bedrock, some parts you're not, and it could be within 10 feet, quite frankly. Right. So geotechnical is required regardless.
Yes, so that's why it was done. But I think we didn't have that going into that, you know, the pricing or whatever. That wasn't part of it. We were looking at, when we had the $700,000 or whatever, we weren't looking at, we hadn't done that investigation at that time to see what the cost would be to kind of go down the bedrock. And again, some of it, again, is just the pricing of what comes in for the project itself or whatever. When you have you know, the 5 bids, we were hoping that, we believed, and even from Land Inc. told us that, you know, that $700,000 should have built what we were looking for. But when the bids came in and they were opened up, we were looking at more money than what we originally planned on.
Thank you, Mr. Mickens. Anything to add? Mr. Lee?
Through you, Your Worship. The option 1 that is presented in this report is actually the identical product that Council passed and approved in the $700,000 debenture price. So when that design with all of its options came to the table and went through the bid process, the final number is the number as it shows in the report. When you put in the cost for the design, for the contract administration, the geotechnical, that brings it to the $875,000. So that original design that was approved is that larger number. The number that's recommended in the report has some elements and some features eliminated from that original design to bring it down to the 807. Some of those elements are the wave. It's been left out. We've taken the colored concrete out, which is a $21,000 option, and we've taken out the shade and the lighting. So that brought it down from the 875 down to the 807. But those costs include all of the contract administration, the design costs, the geotechnical, advertising for contract tendering, and all those.
Okay, thank you. Further questions? Well, I'm going to go to Councillor Desmarais, Councillor Butters, Councillor Elliott, and back to Councillor Doucette. Councillor Desmarais?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to go out on a bit of a limb here, and first of all, just make the statement that I'm in favor of the full build. I know that that's a lot of money to spend, but I think our kids are worth it. I think they waited for it, and I think we owe it to them. So that being said, I would like to ask a few questions of staff. First, how much extra did we have to spend because of the results of the geotechnical study? That's one. And two, when we were supplied with the first figure, the $700,000 that we actually accepted, we decided to go ahead with it on. Who generated that figure, and was it just was there a mistake made? Did there something happen? Because there's a great difference between these figures, obviously. So I'd just like to understand how it all came about. But no matter what, I'd like to say I'm absolutely in favor of it.
Mr. Lee?
To you, Your Worship. The original $700,000 was a number produced by Land Inc. and their assessment of the conditions in the site. That subsequently has changed because of the geotechnical report, which brought to light the soil conditions above the bedrock. So that being the case, from my recollection of the contract documents, that particular item itself added about $75,000 or $80,000 to the price to fix the foundation so that the skate park would have a sound foundation and would last us a lifetime.
Great, thank you, Mr. Lee. That's fine. Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm still trying to still not understanding how we go 700,000, and then at what point does this geotechnical study or get done in terms of the timelines? Because we got this report on March 26th. So are you telling me that the geotechnical study was done after March 26th? Is that
Mr. Lee?
correct?
Through you, Your Worship. Yes, that's correct. After the landing proposal was put on the table.
Councillor?
Well, I had to really take a big swallow to get my head wrapped around 700,000. So you can imagine, where it's at to up the ante at this point. Like I guess in a matter of like 2 months' time, this is like a pretty big chunk higher. And I'm surprised that, has Land Inc. never done any work around here before to know that there's like bedrock, like?
Well, hold on, Councillor.
Places under the soil, or?
I think that's an unfair comment, but I'm going to let the administrator speak on this before we go a bit too far. So if I can ask Mr. Howell to speak on this, and I'm going to come right back to you. Okay, Councillor?
Your Worship, in the design process, what happens is that you look at, and what Land Inc. did, they look at other sites around wherever they've built, and this is an very experienced company. We're very happy with what they've provided us. And they get to Port Colborne, and we tell them there may be some issues. We bring the report to council and say, right now, this is a really good, educated estimate of what this is going to cost. Council, would you agree to proceed with the project? Council says yes. Then we go out and we do some of these other fact-finding issues, such as geotech and things like that, and all of a sudden landing's going and, uh-oh, there may be an issue here with the base. You really don't know that until council's approved the project to start with. And council knows full well that when you're going to put anything in the ground in Port Colborne, you had 10%. Well, 10% would have been 70, and it ended up more. And when we got finished with the report, there's the tender comes in, and it's based on the highest build A. Everything you can do, no cost-cutting measures, and so that everybody's bidding on the same platform. I am informed by the engineer and by the manager of engineering, Jim Hoovenen, that there are some opportunities here yet to try to work some of this down, and to provide some opportunities for some cost cutting without jeopardizing the structure or the warranty with this structure. The company that's the lowest bid right now has also told us that there are things that they can do to save some cost. And you still get that build, and you still get it with the protection and the guarantee that's expected. And that in the design, it's to cover all components in every aspect of the construction. With the contractor's experience, and they have done lots of these, they're telling us that there are some opportunities here that we could save some money, significant. And it was said, I don't want to paraphrase what was said, but close to 100. There may be close to 100 that could be shaved, but you have to redesign the standards and redo it. Do you retender it? That's another whole issue that needs to be discussed and debated. But right now, at this point, we believe we may be able to negotiate some cost savings for the benefit of the project and get it built. It's still going to be over, there's no question. It's still going to be over to build, full build. Underbuild to this one with no color. That is the same build without the color and a couple of things removed, which still provides the full build other than the wave sidewalk, whatever, that's not there. That could be built later. This one, if you look on this one, there's a wave sidewalk that goes from the bow to the center of the bridge. And on this recommendation, that's gone, color's gone, and there's a few other minor things as outlined in the report. The cost is found out after council approves the project. There's no other way, Mr. Mayor, that I would know that you could do it, because we don't want to spend the money and council say, well, would you spend the $5,000 or $4,000 or $8,000 if we haven't approved anything? And that's really the way it always works, is that we find out after it's an oops because of whatever's there.
Thank you. Councilor Butters?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So am I to understand that that this asked to be debentured of $807,377? Are you suggesting that that number is going to be trimmed back by in the range of 100,000 or so? Is that what you're telling me? Because my one concern would be we debentured that amount, and then it just gets spent to that amount.
I got to go to Mr. Lee first, and then I'm going to go to Mr. Howell. So, Mr. Lee, if you can talk about the capital, and then Mr. Howell, I'm going to allow you to talk about the actual debenture. Mr. Lee.
Through you, Your Worship. Excuse me. The 807 figure that Mr. Howell refers to, that is the bill that we see currently on the screen, and the savings that he is referring to are included in some of those, if I am correct. So those dollars have brought it down to that 807 and change that you see. Any other additional savings at this point would be further negotiations that we would have to go into with the contractor if we were to award that contract to that individual.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Howell.
Your Worship, we're not going to debt finance at this level if we're going to spend this level. We're going to debt finance at whatever level we spend and no more. And true to point, if we could finance it till the project is pretty well finished and then go to debt for the money that we need. Because there, as noted in the report, there may be an option or an opportunity to have some partnership of a marine entity. And if we could pick up 100 or 2 or something like that to name this vessel and to christen it and have another one registered in Port Colborne, those kinds of opportunities might reduce the debt on this significantly. That would be our goal, Your Worship, and the members of council, to try to get that to happen.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. Councillor, you're fine. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just shocked when I got the package and saw that extra $107,000. To me, the $700,000 was plenty, and I thought that was where our cap was. Sometimes you got to set a budget and you got to stick to the budget, and you can't spend over. And if you got to reduce the scope of what you're going to build, you got to reduce it. I guess the biggest thing to me is it's odd that we picked the site and got everything going towards this site and then find out it costs $80,000 to remove the soil. With the other sites that we had in mind, are any of the other sites such that it wouldn't cost us $80,000 to remediate the soil to allow the build to go forward? Because if we would have known this, we might have crossed this off the list by saying, well, it's not going to be, it's not worthy of building there because it's going to cost us $80,000 to get it in the ground. Did anybody consider that?
Through you, Your Worship, we wouldn't be able to make that determination until we did geotechnical on all the other proposed sites. At that point, then a decision would have to be made.
I guess that leads to my biggest question is why the geotechnical wasn't done before we got into the planning stage and the design stage. Why didn't we check out the land when we identified that this is where we were going to go, and just to see if it can accept what we want to build on it?
Mr. Howe.
Your Worship, staff doesn't have any authority to go out and do the geotech studies until you approve the project. Site was chosen. Geotech study, even on the Health and Wellness Center, revealed some good and, some plus and minuses in that. You don't know that until the project gets underway. And staff don't have the authority and aren't going to ask council to go and spend $15,000 or $20,000 to do 2 or 3 or 4 geotech studies to find the location. The site was chosen based on lots of public input by folks out here, as well as the youth organization, all the stuff that came in the public meetings. The site was chosen as being the best location. If that's the best location, what we found here, the geotechnical issue, after council approved, let's proceed with it, was identified. We did not go elsewhere because we didn't have the budget, nor would we ask council to go out and test geotechnical locations elsewhere. If we're going to save it, we're going to spend it in geotechnical studies, I would presume.
Thank you. Councillor?
Now that we've got the geotechnical done, it's going to cost us $80,000 to build it in this place. I'm almost thinking, would it not be prevalent to do another geotechnical on a secondary place? If I'm going to spend $4,000 to get a geotechnical done and save myself $80,000 in land costs to put it in, you'd almost think that $4,000 was a decent amount of money to spend in a second. I just don't understand why now, when you know it's an extra $80,000 to build in this location, that we're going to go forward with it. When we set a budget of $700,000, where do you say that it costs too much for this particular site to put it in? I mean, if it would have come back and it would have been $100,000 to remediate the site, well, we'd still go forward with it. Where do you cap that limit on how much you want to spend to fix a site, to put something in, and it still be cost effective to build what you want to build? That's my problem. We said $700,000. I can't support the $807,000 debenture. I can't. I want to build a skate park, and I want to build it, and I want to build it as good as we can. But sometimes you got to build within your limits, and you got to stay within the limits. And if you can't move on it, and this one, I just can't move on.
Thank you. Further comments or questions? First round speakers. Okay, second round speakers. First round. Go ahead, Councillor Bodner.
Just a question on the color. Mr. Heil talked about the possibility of getting a possible shipping company to maybe name the ship. I think they might want it in their colors. Is that a decision we should make at sometime after we know if they're coming? I don't know. I'm just throwing that out. I was just looking at the colored pictures and thinking, if I was going to spend some money on it, maybe I'd like it to look like my ship. So just to, I don't know whether that muddies the waters, but I just thought maybe that's for consideration. If I don't know even if the conversation has gone that far with the company, or we're just thinking of going for a company. So.
Mr. Howe?
Your Worship, we've not made any contact yet pending the result of tonight's report.
Thank you. Moving away from first-time speakers, I have second-time speakers, Doucette, Demaraine, and Kenny.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. If you go through the report indicates, and I'm looking for it and I can't find it right now, that there are possibilities of more efficiencies in the build, which means it'll bring the price down. That's number one. Number two, $700,000 was the price that was given without the geotech. The geotech added $80,000. To make up the $80,000, there were a lot of things that were taken out to get option number 3. And because of that, it's come down to 807. Now, 780, so there's that extra 36. I agree with Councillor Kenny in that if the original documents indicated that there was going to be a contract administration, why are we adding another 36,000? And I don't have an answer for that. And maybe someone can give us an answer for that one. That's fine. The MIAC has indicated they are working hard at funding 70%, 10% of the build. Okay? They are in the process of putting together a plan that will give them that amount of money. There's your difference right there. Okay? And they've indicated that. Mind you, Mr. Hupinen, who wrote, I believe, a good part of this report with Mr. Makins, indicates that maybe we should debenture it, and then a debenture is an open loan. So if they come up with 80,000, we can throw 80,000 on the loan and it brings it down that much faster. Okay? This way here we can be guaranteed that the money is there that is necessary to be there. I believe the venture is an open contract. It's not? Okay.
If I can clarify, Councillor, no, okay. No, it's not, but it doesn't say that you can't use that to pay off that debenture. Okay. Okay. So there are other ways around it. But the 807 is the lowest that could be done right now without having a contract with that company. And I'm going to keep looking to see if I can find it, but I believe there were indications of 40 to 50,000 for sure of savings in efficiencies once they have the contract, and they can go to the contractor and say, where do you think? And so on and so forth, and it can be done. So we're almost down there already, okay? To go find another site, any site in Port Colborne that you go to, you're going to need the geotech. Some of them may cost you 60, some of them may cost you 80, some of them may cost you 40. But bottom line is, they're going to cost you a lot of money to go down to the rock, odds are, because you have to take most of the material off. So saying that because it's 80,000, you're not going to award it, after all I'm concerned, is a misconception. Sounds great. A lot of people understand it, but it's a misconception. Here in Port Colborne, it's going to cost you. I don't care who does it, where it's done, it's going to cost you. It's as simple as that. Okay? So I don't totally disagree with that. We need to have this contract. Otherwise, they do not have a build. And if you follow through with the report, odds are it may not be built till the end of 2012. And then now you're talking 2013, and then you're, no. They've waited 15 to 17 years already. We've promised it to them. Get it done. There are efficiencies that will be found in the construction of it. Let's award the contract and let's move on here. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Demaraine.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do believe that we should be looking for efficiencies, but I think that we should have learned a lesson most recently from some of the changes we've had to make to existing buildings. Efficiencies are efficiencies, but taking things out to save money is not always saving money.
That's true.
That's just not always a good idea. And if we limit this build in any way, we may also limit any kind of sponsorship that may come down the line. And if we take the bow off of it, it's no longer a ship. If we eliminate even the colors, that may cause a problem as well. There can be, if we start changing the design, we could start changing what our possibilities are for it. So I would just caution everyone to think about this. Yes, it is a lot of money. There's no question. But going out and looking for sponsorship, the work the kids are doing, getting money together, and I know that there may be an opportunity to get some tonight, and possibly they could come up and do some speaking about that tonight. But you know, there's so much that can happen out there, and if we all pull together, I'm sure we can make it happen. Yes, it's a lot of money, but if we can take risks for other things, I'm sure that we can finally take risks for our kids.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you. Through you, Your Worship, to staff. On one page 137 of our report, it gives us, just before option 1, it gives us all the things that were pre-construction cost. And in that pre-construction cost, there was that contract administration allowance that belongs to this company that designed it, and that's Land Inc. So that 36,000 that is in B here should not be in B, because they've got that. They said that that was there, so that in B, if we got to take B right out of there, because they already got that money. They said they got it in their pre-construction cost. So then I took the construction budget that's listed there on our report for $607,000, added the $92,000 pre-construction, and I get 701. I don't get. Did I add wrong? I get 701.
You added it right.
Okay. So I guess if the construction budget was that, and I'm adding the 92,000, I'm forgetting about that 36, because that 36 is included in the 92. I don't get. No matter which figure I put together, guess what? I do not get 807. I don't.
Well, what I'm going to do, Councillor, if I may.
But I want to make it very clear, Your Worship. I am in favor of the location. I think the location you chose, my act, fantastic location, because it's part when I was doing community policing all the time and going to their seminars. One of the things the police wanted was a view from, and they can get that. Where it's located, it's a perfect location. And I just have to say that some of these things that we're talking about, lighting and color and sunshade and blue wave and all that, all that sounds like fantastic. But when I look at that basic bow design, gray, you can skateboard to your heart's content. It doesn't change. The color doesn't change anything. It just makes it maybe look nicer. But the gray design works. You can skate. It's going to have, what do you call that, graphic art design on there anyway. Very quickly, it's part of being a skateboard park. Everybody knows that. I mean, Fort Erie, I think 2 days after it was up, had their designs on there quickly. About skateboarders, and that's great. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's fantastic. But I just want to emphasize, if someone could tell me how they came to that figure, I would be really. And I know you're going to tell me, right, Chris?
Thank you, Councillor Kenny. First off, we're not going to encourage graffiti. For the better part, if it does happen, our staff will have to be out there to clean it, and the taxpayers will have to be out there to pay for it. So it's not something that we're going to encourage, and if it does get out of hand, I can only assume, as you are, that further steps will have to be taken to prevent graffiti from happening. So it's not something that we're going to encourage. However, I do want to allow Mr. Sinez to speak on the costing of the facility and really get down to where this is all going and coming from. And please take the time that you need, Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When you look at the top of page 137 of the council reports, page 3 of 7 of the report itself, basically your $92,966 is your design, your contract administration, geotech advertising, and allowance for material testing. That's your $92,000. Originally, the budget that was brought forward was $700,000. So the difference is the $607,033.80, which is typically the construction budget would have to come in at $607,000 in order to meet the $700,000 budget. When you look at option 3, it shows the same pre-construction cost of the $92,966 and the $714,411. That is the tendered construction cost that came in. That is the difference. So the overage is really the difference between the 714, which is what the tender came in at, versus the $607,000 that was originally budgeted for, the $700,000. And that's with the reduction. Option 3 was with a reduction of the wave and the shelter and the colored concrete. So that's the difference between the original budget and option 3 that's being recommended. As far as, just to give a little bit more information to also, Mr. Mayor, as far as the borrowing and the debenture of this project, the $807,000 over 30 years, which is what's being recommended, the annual cost of that, which would be to our levy next year, would be almost $45,000, which is about a 0.37% increase to our levy overall. Originally, when we budgeted in 2012, we were showing a $700,000 budget over 20 years, and that amount was almost $49,000. Same annual amount. What's being done is we're putting it over 30 years rather than 20 years. So there's a 10-year extension on that. So you're coming up with your actual levy amount is going to be roughly the same, and it's going to have the same effect on the tax levy. It's spread out over an additional 10 years to do that.
Hey Peter, what's the additional cost from the 20 to 30 years?
The additional cost and interest is about $200,000 over 10 years.
Okay. Councillor, that's fine. Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to go back to the $36,638 for contract administration allowance, and I want someone to explain to me why that exact amount is in the recommendation under B. Did we not already, like, if it's already included in the $92,966.20 on page 137 at the top, then why is that exact same amount of money included in the recommendation B? I need someone to explain that to me.
Mr. Sinez?
And B. Kenny's already asked that question at least 3 times. I think Angie asked it once, so I'm probably up to, like, I don't know, 4 or 5.
I appreciate that, Councillor. Mr. Sinez?
Yes. Basically, what that is doing, item B in the recommendation, we were looking for item B in the report, but item B in the recommendation, that $36,000 is just confirming the contract administration going to Land Inc. The original report that went to council was originally that $40,000 was for the design. Once the design was done and the contract was let by them, it was looked at that the contract administration of this project would be extended to Land Inc., who the designer is, to actually administer the project, and that cost us $36,000. So what item B is just for council to actually approve the existing agreement that we do have with Land Inc. to not only do the design, but to actually do the project management.
Thank you. Councillor?
Okay, so when you added the $36,638 in the list on page 137 to come up with 92, and then you added that to the construction cost of $714,000 to make the 807, isn't it being added in twice?
Mr. Sinez?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It's not being added in twice because the $714,000 in option 3 is the construction cost, and that's on page 138. So, and the pre-construction cost of $92,966 includes that $36,000, which you can see on page 137 at the top of the page. All the items that are included in the $92,966. So it's included that. So it's not in there twice. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Further questions or comments, Councillor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. One of the things I would like to have is, if everyone is in agreement, is I'd like to either have someone from MIAC or even Mr. Makins, who is very much aware of the situation, about the fundraising that MIAC is doing for this particular area. The other thing I want everyone to identify here is, out in the crowd, we have police officers that are in support of this. They're here. We had the fire department as well, but something happened and they had to leave. Okay? But they are very much in agreement. They have been part of the process here. So they know what's going on, and they are in agreement with everything that's going on. So I think everyone has to be aware of that. But Mr. Mayor,
Thank you, Councillor. Mr. Makins?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Doucette. Certainly I can highlight kind of the efforts to date and what we've got planned. Like I said, the MIAC group has committed to trying to raise 10% of the cost of the park. So they set a budget of $70,000 is what they'd like to do. We have right now 3 different programs that are just set up. They're not running yet, but they're in place. The first one is we're working in a partnership with the pedal shop, and they're looking at getting us a bike that'll be raffled off. It'll be a $1,000 bike. So he and his suppliers will donate the bike, and then we'll look at printing off the tickets and getting the licenses and that, so we can raffle off that bike. And we want to raffle that off so that the winning ticket will be drawn on the day that the park opens. So we'll have a big grand opening, and somebody will win a $1,000 bike there. On June 21st of this, July 21st of this year, we're looking at a movie on the beach. We're going to have a large screen TV set, or a large screen movie theater set up on the beach. It'll be a drive-in, walk-in, boat-in, or whatever. So whichever mode of transportation you want to bring it to Nickel Beach, and we'll be showing one of the movies that's just off the screen. So we're hoping. We're looking at the Avengers, maybe, if that is available at that time, whatever. So I like a $10 carload night or whatever. So certainly encouraging people to come down to the beach to watch a feature film on the beach. And then we're looking at different vendors coming and charging them a fee to sell popcorn and pop and all that type of stuff, all the people on the beach. So looking forward to that, and it's kind of neat. We're also looking at different companies in Port Colborne to do the $2 donation on top of your checkout. So if you're either at the pharmacy, a liquor store, beer store, whatever, that they often will ask you, would you like to add $2 onto your bill, and that'll go directly to the skateboard park. And then what you'll get is a little cutout, either a skateboarder or a BMX bike or whatever. You'll put your name on it, and they post those up at the checkout or whatever. So you see those big walls, whatever, food basics, that type of stuff. So we're going to approach those businesses and see if they'll be amicable to letting us do that type of fundraising efforts there too. And probably a car wash sometime at the end of the summer months too. So those are kind of the 4 events that we've got planned right now as our fundraising. We do have some commitments already. The Firefighters Association is pledging $1,000 to the skateboard park, and we've also had 2 different bequests. Don't know the amounts yet, but they've said that they'd like to make a donation to the skateboard park in the name of somebody that's passed on or whatever. So we're sort of looking at those opportunities. And then I think the big one we did talk about was, again, going to the marine companies or whatever, and really see if we can get a name on the ship, whatever. We believe that's worth quite a bit. That would be kind of nice if we put that on the bow, and again, kind of, christen the ship and have a second ship christened in Port Colborne. So that's the fundraising that's to date, and where we're planning on moving from here.
Thank you, Mr. Mickens. I'm going to offer an opportunity for someone that's out in the gallery to say a few words. I can already see Gina starting to hide. Anybody at all? I see a few of the officers here from the Niagara Regional Police. I see a few members from MIAC here. Would anybody want to say anything? If you do, come on up, introduce yourself, your name, who you're representing, and by all means, the floor is yours. Right here, yeah. Just press the gray button and the floor is yours.
All right. My name is Sarah Berger, and I did go to Port Colborne High School. I graduated there last year. I'm now at Brock University studying oenology and viticulture, which is winemaking. Right. Just to add and emphasize what Councillor Doucette was saying about we've waited 15 plus years. And what I'd like to say is that you can't get back time. Time you can't get back. Money you can. So I just like to add that to this whole discussion and debate.
Thank you. Well stated.
Thank you.
Hi, Jeff Donahue. Just wanted to say to be with Fort Erie's skateboard park. They have a video camera on it. There is absolutely no graffiti. So something like that would be great for us to do. Again, to donations from somebody, they get to be able to see through the video camera and have their name on it or whatever. So that's it. Thanks.
Thanks. Any further comments from anybody else? Gina, you sure you don't want to take the podium? No?
Can't say it in public.
Come on up, Gina. Press the button.
One thing that wasn't pointed out about the skate park, and I'm not sure if everyone is aware, some are, this design is, and we have it in writing, is one of the only of its kind in the world right now. There's not a themed nautical skate park, BMX park anywhere. There is a bowl that is made out of wood that 2 or 3 people, actually 2 people can fit in at one time. It's on YouTube, it's in Germany. The skate park company itself researched everywhere in the world and came back with that answer to us. It is an actual tourist attraction as well. We've had people contact us. Excuse me, I'm getting laryngitis. We've had people contact us that want to plan their family vacations around the skate park. They're asking when it's going to be opening and such. And it is an actual sport. It's not just always the kids getting together or learning, but we do have a unique group of kids in Port Colborne that want to work with the kids that don't know how to skate yet, that don't know how to BMX. And they were talking about having days set aside, mentoring programs. That there's a lot of opportunity that can take place at this skate park. And again, with the tourism, it's a big draw. And we're going to not only draw from within our Niagara region, but we're also going to be drawing outside. United States have called as well. It's all over Facebook, it's all over the internet, so I can't wait till it's built because it's going to be all over YouTube as well.
Thank you, Gina. Well done. Any further comments or questions from those in the gallery? I do want to take this time before the vote goes. I do want to take this time to thank all you folks for being a part of this process. Not just staff, Gary, you and your team, as well as Councillor Doucette, who's the liaison on my youth council, but Gina, yourself as well for being a part of this, and regional staff. I see, who I don't see here is Sergeant Weeks, because I know Sergeant Weeks has been very much involved in this process. But here today we have Constable DiPietro and Sergeant Dever. Is it Dever or Dever? Devers. Here today. I know the NRP has been very much involved. I think DiPietro is going to be out there with his own skateboard, more than likely. Aren't you? And your helmet.
A little red light on the top.
But to the Niagara Regional Police, I do want to express my appreciation to all of you for being a part of this process since day one, and really ensuring that you're a partner within this process, as well as a skateboarder. But thank you to you, as well as the fire department. I know the fire department and emergency services have also been a part of this process, and I want to thank them as well. So a lot of people, a lot of time, as Councillor Doucette has outlined, have been a part of this process, and of course council to you as well for the work that you put into this, especially when it comes to the financial side of it. Mr. Makins.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just if I can maybe wrap up just before we take a vote. We really only get one chance to do this, and tonight's that chance. You get one chance to do it, and you really should do it right if you can. You know, we just heard the other day the city of Welland now is trying to replace their skate park. It's probably about only 10 years old or whatever, but again, it wasn't designed with the people in mind, you know, as other people did it, and now they're saying it's not adequate, it's not right, and you don't get that chance to go back. You know, you really can't do that. Gina mentioned this earlier, and we've heard this before too, that people are now starting to plan vacations or making it a destination to come to that skate park if it has that right thing. It's no different than, and you know, it's just we're a little bit older right now. You know, a lot of golfers will go to, you plan to go to Pebble Beach, or you're going to go to St. Andrews. You'll do that once in your lifetime, but you do it because that's the history. That's where it started. And if you have that kind of facility here or whatever, that's what people do. They'll say, you know, before I go on my bucket list, I'm going to skate for Colborne's, you know, skate park, whatever, because it is unique. We, you know, they understand there is not another one of these that's designed like this. It is totally unique. It's totally the kids' design. They were the ones that came up with it, and it's just, you know, Land Inc. is, I think, going to now start selling this kind of themed skate park. I bet you're going to see it all over the place, and we maybe even get some residuals on that and make some money. But anyways, you know, it can only be done once. One of the neat things too, and understand, you know, the size is important. It is a BMX skateboard park, and you do need that size to coexist. You have to have that, and the way it's set up. One of the only things you know, unfortunately with the option number 3 is you're losing the wave track, whatever, and that's kind of important. You know, to our skaters, whatever, the biggest thing they want is they want to keep the skatability of the park. That is number 1. You know, the colored concrete and that kind of stuff is really sharp, and I think it's important. But again, it's not as important as the skatability. If you get the wave track back in there, whatever, that's something that you look at because that's a skatable feature, whatever. They want to hang on to all those skatable features that they can. But again, you know, for us to market and try and sell it, you know, with the color, it just adds that much more to it, that it does make it that kind of stick out and be way different than anything else that's out there on the market right now. But like I say, you know, we've got one shot to do it. The kids have worked really hard to do it, and you know, we'll leave it up to you to make that decision.
Great. Thank you, Gary. Councilor Bodnar?
Just to Gary's comments, I kind of like the color part too, but if we vote on option 3, we're not getting color. There isn't an option in there to get color.
Mr. Bacons?
Oh, option 1 will give us color.
So yeah, option 1 does have everything with the color too.
Okay.
Okay. Members of council, any further questions or comments to the report? Okay, the motion is outlined in your report. Oh, everyone's clear on the option or on the recommendation? Councilor Bodnar, go ahead.
Still trying to figure out how to get the color in, because I vote against option 3, and then the vote goes for, you know, less. Anyways, I'm just trying to get an idea from council where everybody's sitting on this. So I see Councilor Demery has her hand up. Maybe there's some discussion going here.
Well, hold on. If I could make it a bit easier, I think it was outlined that the color was going to be $20-some-odd thousand for the color, 21,000 you mentioned, Chris. So if you want to, whether before or after the resolution, Councilor Bodnar is added an amendment to that, that would be appropriate. Okay? Councilor Demery?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I ask how much the wave is? Because I think that's a really important component. I really do. With the color and the wave together, I think are very, very important.
I see him leaning towards option 1 now. Option 2 to option 1, so. Mr. Lee.
Through you, your worship. The wave itself, without any colors in it, is 18,000. The color option is 21.
It's 21. So we're looking at 21 for the color.
That's
18 for the wave.
That's 21 for the whole build,
right.
Not just the wave. That includes everything, and if you want the wave extra, it's 18,000.
Okay. Okay, so members of council, you do have a recommendation before you. Councilor Bodnar.
I would put an amendment on the floor that we go with the color, and that would be the color that goes right through the whole thing. So if there's a chip, it stays color right through, not just on the surface. And that's, I believe, what Councilor Mr. Lee is talking about.
To you, your worship. Yes, that's correct. The color we're referring to is concrete color embedded into the concrete.
Right through.
Ron, what I would add to that amendment as well, if you don't mind, is that the color would be specific to, if in fact there's a sponsor,
yes,
that the color would be specific to the colors that they would require.
Right.
Would that be fine?
Yep, absolutely. I'll put that as an amendment. If someone else wants to wave at it, that's you know.
Okay.
Councillor.
Do I have a seconder to that amendment, please? Councillor Steele. Any questions or comments to that amendment? Now, of course, that amendment assumes that the report's going to pass. So I do want to give you that caveat. So we'll leave that as it may, but I'd rather do it first, prior to, so council gets an understanding of clarification. Go ahead, councillor.
So if now council is leaning toward option 1, it's not 807 anymore, it's 875.
Mr. Lee?
Depending how far council leans.
No, I need
depends
to
on
know.
how many of the elements are added.
No, I need to know.
If you go with the 807 and you add the wave, you add 18,000 to the 807. If you add color, you add another 21,000 on top of that. You still haven't reached the 875 or whatever.
Oh, wow.
Go ahead, councillor.
No, so I just want to make sure that I know what I'm voting on, because you're pushing me now, like, you know, and like I said, I want this, but there's, you know, you have to be reasonable. I mean, thank God, Peter, you explained it's a longer debenture. That helped me with tax-wise when we sit down next year to do taxes.
However, councillor,
I need to know what is a bottom line price now we're talking about.
Councillor, just to be fair, you do want to understand though, with the extra 10 years, there's a cost attached to that.
I know.
Over and above what we have here.
I absolutely know that,
So
sir.
I want you to be aware of that. Mr. Sunez, councillor wants to know the 807 plus the 18 plus the 21.
That your total cost there would be the $846,000.
Okay.
846,000.
Okay, so to the amendment.
That's with color in and the wave.
Go ahead, councillor Butters.
Can Peter just tell us what the impact on the next budget deliberation is going to be?
Fair question.
By doing this, please?
Mr. Sunez?
The additional $39,000 would really have a minimal impact on it, especially if there's the fundraising that comes into play, and if there's efficiencies that are found as laid out in the report in negotiating with the contractor. You know, you could be back to the 800,000 or below the 800,000 once all is said and done. But $39,000 debenture over 30 years is going to be very minimal.
Councillor?
I was actually thinking more in terms of like the 807 as opposed to the 700,000 and then adding the 39. Like I was more looking at the total impact. If I could have that.
Mr. Sunez?
The 807 debenture, Councillor, is about $45,000 annually on a 30-year debenture.
Which is in terms of the impact, what you said point.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was 0.37% levy increase.
Okay.
No, if you add the additional 39, you might be adding another, $500, $600 to it, if not even.
Okay. Further questions or comments to the amendment? Councillor Bodnar.
This is the amendment for color and wave.
Right.
Everybody's talking like my amendment did not include the wave. If someone else wants to include that, I'm all for a friendly amendment, but everybody's talking that the wave's in there, but my amendment did not include the wave, so.
Okay, members of council, we're starting to add on to this. What I would like to do is actually go to the main motion, okay, and then we can go from there to then go to your amendment, Councillor Bodnar, which would then include the paint or the color, and then from there, because we've sort of got the cart before the horse here, in terms of going on to the amendment when we haven't really discussed or voted on the project itself. So, I don't want anybody to make any assumptions here. So I'd rather deal with the main issue first, and then we can go to the amendments with respect to the add-ons. Is that okay with members of council? Yes. Will that be fine?
Hold on.
Councillor Bodnar, go ahead.
Sure, let's just explain to council what happens if they vote yes on that amendment.
Well, that's,
or no.
That's the trouble
Because
here.
I see a few,
Yeah.
what are we doing here? So.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to vote on the recommendation that's still in the report. That would be option 3, and then from there, if it passes, we'll then go on to the amendments that Councillor Bodner and possibly someone else is going to put forward. The waive aspect. Again, I just don't feel comfortable in voting on an amendment before we actually voted on the project itself. Because what if it gets turned down? Then all you're going to have is a colored wave. So, so we don't need that. So why don't we go with the main motion first, members? I'm going to ask: is there any other speakers on the main motion? There's no other speakers. Okay, with Councillor Elliott, go ahead.
Just I'd like to ask for a recorded vote.
Okay. Pardon me? Yeah, you would have to take a recorded vote during the council meeting. So if you can call that during the council portion, that'd be fine. Thank you. No further comments or questions, members? With that, all those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Now we'll go through the amendments. Councillor Bodner, we'll go with your amendment first, as outlined. Go ahead.
I'll vote that, or I'll amend that we add the color into it, the color that goes right through for 21,000. Was that the proper? Okay, 21,000.
Okay. And you'll make it specific to if we get a sponsor?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Bodner. Have a seconder to that, please. Councillor Steele. Any questions or comments to that? No. Just if the color will be specific to if we get a sponsor, but we're still going to go with a color. Okay. Questions or comments to the amendment? All those in favor? Opposed? We will go with the color. I broke the tie. Now with the any other amendments? Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to amend that we also include the waive at, I believe it was a cost of $18,000.
Okay, do a seconder to that, please. Councillor Steele. Are there any questions or comments to that? All those in favor? Opposed? You'll be getting the waive too. Members of council, any other amendments you want to add to this? None? I'm just going to add a few comments before I move on to the next item, because I did break 2 ties. I'm going to make those comments now versus before the vote. With the way the vote went, being supporting the main motion, which was a vote of 7-2. That 7 includes my vote. And with the 2 that I had broken a tie, the reason why I did that is for many reasons. Being here since 1994 in this chamber, and since 1997 as the mayor, this has been a while. There's no question about it. And I think the one young lady summed it up perfectly by time can't be replaced and money can, and I appreciate that comment. The city of Port Colborne, and I think people will recognize this, especially within the last 2 to 3 years, is a city that is being rebuilt for young families, rebuilt to be a vibrant, active, and healthy community. And I think when you see the construction happening, when I say that, I don't mean just an activity, but I also mean an investment, because you would only expect that while you rebuild your community for family, that you would also get commercial retail growth and you would get industrial growth, because the whole emphasis is being placed on quality of life as well as business, in terms of what I guess it goes back, Stephen, to our saying, where business and lifestyle are a perfect match. But I think we're walking the talk in that regard. And not only are we walking the talk as a council, but we're walking the talk with our partners here, and that's our youth of our community, as well as our different emergency services. And that's, as I always said, you know, it's not only what you do, it's how you do it. And to have the entire community, including our youth, to be part of that process is something that's even more special than just council or the adults of the community doing it. You guys have taken a lead on this, and you're to be commended on that. I think for the most part, I've heard this often by the youth, that the youth are committed and dedicated to the interests of this community, of our community, of their community. And I think as members of council, we as well have to be committed and dedicated to your interests. And I think the vote tonight showed that and exhibited that. The youth, and we often say that the youth are our future, and it's often easy to say in words, but I think also to exhibit with investment goes without saying. And again, this council once again exhibited that. You know, this location, it's, you know, at one time I remember as a youngster, maybe not your age, but a bit younger, seeing a big sign on the corner of Wellington and Highway 3 that boasted that Port Colborne had the longest lock in the world. And although we may not boast that anymore, I think we're the second longest lock in the world now because Panama did expand. However, how appropriate it is to have this project next to the second longest lock in the world. And of course, you recognizing that as picking that location. But again, I want to go back to my initial comments. You know, Port Colborne, quite frankly, and the message is loud and clear. And Councillor just said it perfectly. Let's just get it done. And how more can you do that by than just doing it? And you folks have exhibited that as our youth moving into our future, but as well this council supporting what you've done. But again, being rebuilt for the activities of family, of our youth is something that's very important, and we're proceeding in that. Bob mentioned in my ear the wakeboarding that's being brought to Sugarloaf. It's being, you know, these are destinations, and Gina, you hit it right on the head. You know, pardon me?
And the zip lining.
The zip lining as well, yeah, and the wakeboarding. But again, you know, not only is it a destination to come to Niagara Falls and see the falls, see a guy walk over the falls on a small little wire, but also you know, to come and enjoy some of the world's finest wines, but also to come to the beaches and come to the marinas and come to the parks and come to the trails and come to the different things that not only Niagara Falls offers, but when you look at Niagara South Coast, that we're able to offer as well. So ultimately, again, I want to thank all of you for taking the last 17 years of your life. And to those that are watching that may be our age now, that were a part of that process as well. Emergency Services, the Niagara Regional Police, you know, and of course the fire department, all of you. And not only the youngsters, but also the older folks that are still skateboarding, that are still young at heart. Congratulations, guys. Job well done. And for the most part, we look forward to this thing being constructed and adding to the inventory of reasons why people come to Niagara South Coast here in Port Colborne, and of course, ultimately, the entire beautiful Niagara region. So, great job, guys. Well done. So, members of council, with that, that exhausts, no, actually, we have one more item, item 15. We're going to move to Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That the correspondence received from Clear Energy Inc., Sam Young Electric Limited, request for council support for 65 kilowatt rooftop mounted solar system at 4 Stonebridge Drive be referred to staff for report on rooftop mounted solar systems.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder to that, please? Councillor Elliott? I'm sorry, Councillor Kenny? Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I only bring it up for one reason, and it's to either get staff or council to either support it or not support it and not do the staff report, because I'm trying to figure out why we want to have a staff report on rooftop mounted solar systems when I think everybody knows what they are, and this is a private enterprise. They're going to spend their money to put a solar panel on their roof. We either support them in their endeavor or we don't, and if we don't, then let's not do the staff report, because really it'd be a waste of staff time.
I guess it goes back to the geotech we had to do beforehand, eh? Mr. Heil.
Your Worship, the clerk and I reviewed this at length, probably about 3 minutes, preparing. The reason that we ask for a staff report is that we have other companies also requesting the same. And in this motion, council is supporting this company, and there are others. We wanted to try to identify others and come back with a recommendation for council to support the principle and to support the opportunity, and to recommend this not only just for this company but for others that may be getting the business rather than just supporting this company. That was the purpose of referring it to staff, so that we could look at it generically rather than trying to say this one business works. That's the only reason.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Councillor?
So that being said, direction would be, we want the staff to generate the report on it. I mean, I go either way. I mean, I'm just thinking if we're going to have staff time to write a report on rooftop mounted solar systems, I mean, I think everybody sees that they're in use. Is it just the way that we're supporting, it looks like we're supporting one company more than another? That's
Mr. Howell.
Gotcha.
Yes, Your Worship. Just trying to make it a little more generic. There's a specific request by this company to support this company. And rather than support one, we know of another one that we met with this week, or just, I guess, Thursday. And we know that there are others, and we just want to speak to it in general terms.
That's fine. Okay, thank you. Any further questions or comments to this report? Councillor Butters, I see a confused look in your face there. Ask the question. I don't want you to vote on something that
it just seems like this is like a private business, and they're like what they have listed here. I didn't find particularly onerous. I thought they were all pretty positive items in the letter. Reasons for council support: local project ownership, local skilled labor and trades utilized, example solar installers and licensed electricians, local warehousing and logistics support. Over 60% of project components manufactured in Ontario. Industrial commercial zone location creates green renewable energy used by local electricity grid. Rooftop located solar system, no extra land utilized. Fully engineered solar system with all required permitting and inspections. And it says, while not a requirement of the Ontario Power Authority FIT program, we wish to involve the council via this request, as it makes you aware of the many local benefits of this project, while at the same time improving the chances of this project obtaining the approval of the Ontario Power Authority and moving forward in a more expedient manner. So that doesn't say that we wouldn't want to assist another company that would want to do something like that with somebody else's building, would it? It doesn't preclude that. It just makes it very clear that we're prepared to, for this very good list of reasons why we would be supportive.
Great,
so thanks. I'm not sure what, we're trying to protect ourselves from or avoid. Like okay. I could support this tonight.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Butters. Aren't you glad you stood up and said that? Councillor Steele. Thank
you, Worship. If I could just add an amendment to this in the fact that it would read that the correspondence received from Clear Energy Inc. / Sam Young Electric Limited request for council support for a 65 kilowatt rooftop mounted solar system at 4 Stonebridge Drive be supported by the council of the city of Port Colborne, and that council refers this issue to staff for a generic report back to council to our next meeting with regards to further projects that come forward.
Okay, Councillor, I'm going to ask you to repeat that. because the clerk was talking to the corporate or the director of corporate services.
Yeah.
So in defense of her, and
yep,
in fairness to her, if you want to repeat that, please.
Yep. So after 4 Stonebridge Drive, that this be supported by the council of the city of Port Colborne. And that the council directs staff to prepare a report to this matter with regards to generic projects coming forward.
Okay, so we're getting both the report and the support that they're requiring. Thank you, Councillor Steele. Before I go any further, I see one of the gentlemen has his hand up in the back, and I know you've been sitting here very patiently the entire evening listening to all of this, so I'm going to give you an opportunity to come on up here and address anything that you want to address. I'm going to ask for leave of council to allow this, please. Motion. Elliott, Butters, questions, comments, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. You're up.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councillors. We represent Earl Henderson, who's the property owner. And one thing I want to make clear, and right to your point, Mr. Heil, that we actually have a form that I think I've forwarded now that is provided by the Ontario Power Authority, and Ashley Grigg actually has that, which is essentially with the form that they require from the municipal council saying that they're in support of the rooftop solar. What they also do provide on the Ontario Power Authority website, and will be available at some point either now or very shortly in the future, is a blanket municipal council resolution in which you can do exactly what you were talking about and support all rooftop solar projects within the the city of Port Colborne. Okay, so both are kind of addressed by the Ontario Power Authority at that point in time. What we're looking for is, just so you guys have an understanding of why this is required, is the program has changed, the FIT program in Ontario, and one of the requirements they're having is they're going to start prioritizing projects that have local support and moving them up in the application approval process. And that's one of the reasons is the higher we can get in the application process with your support, the more likely the project is to go forward, and the more likely the benefits that are outlined in that letter are to come to Port Colborne because of that.
Wonderful.
Okay, thank you.
And before you guys take off, the clerk has a requirement that she needs to know your names.
Yes, I'm Stephen Bartlett. I drafted that letter, and this is Kelly St. John, and it's Clear Sky Energy actually, and we're a direct affiliated partner with Sam Young Electric.
Thank you.
Okay.
Members of council, before these guys are left the podium, questions or comments to them? Councillor Bodder.
I'm supportive of this, but I have a question on the blanket thing we're going to sign. Does that preclude any neighbors complaining, or wouldn't they get a chance to come and say, we don't want that on our neighbor's house? Will our support preclude that? And maybe, I don't know whether it's through you or Mr. Heil, but what does this give you when we give you this blanket?
The blanket municipal council resolution essentially just says that you support us proceeding further in the application process with the Ontario Power Authority. Okay, so as far as neighbors and whatnot, I mean, it's really designed as more of the FIT projects anyway, not the micro-FIT, which are the smaller residential scale. This is more the commercial scale, larger scale projects, which generally speaking would only be on rooftops that would support a large scale, which would be an industrial commercial area.
And you can limit your blanket resolution to a specific project type. So if you say we have a blanket resolution for rooftop solar only, you can do that, and it can be for a certain period of time. What we're here tonight asking for isn't necessarily a blanket resolution, although you can provide that through one of the OPA's options. It's more a resolution just in principle that you would support this project.
Okay. Further questions or comments? Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the two gentlemen. I'm in the insurance industry, and this actually is coming up as a concern both on the fire insurance side and with our rapport with our local fire department, and speaking with the chief who was here earlier. There is a concern with regards to fighting fires with solar panels, because once a fire department shows up in the middle of the night, their lights on their trucks can actually power up these systems so that there still is a charge within the system.
Yeah.
Explain to me how we can safeguard our fire department with regards to that type of issue.
We've actually already addressed that issue with quite a few actually local and North American fire departments who we've had the similar discussions with. One of them was a local firefighter here who's actually a Hydro One employee, but a Wainfleet volunteer fireman. And one of the benefits of the system we're putting on Mr. Henderson's property, or proposing to put on Mr. Henderson's property, is a microinverter technology which mitigates that risk factor, because without getting into a lot of technical end of it, the older style systems, and still a lot of the ones used today, were what's called a string inverter, which means at the disconnect at the ground, if you turn it off, everything is still live up to that point down the roof to the ground. With a microinverter, because there's one inverter on every panel, when you disconnect at the ground, the power disconnects at each panel up on the top of the roof to isolate the system. So that actually mitigates that effect. So really, in a string setup, you have 600 volt DC, which is high voltage. At the microinverter setup we're talking about and proposing, that would only be about 35 volt DC, which is significantly less, and certainly not something that's gonna actually probably kill somebody or be a risk to a firefighter on that roof.
Okay. Any further questions or comments to the amendment? Councillor Steele, I had you moving an amendment. Who did I have second to that amendment? Councillor Butters, that's what I thought. Okay.
Sure.
Well, I had you moving it.
Yeah.
And I thought I had Butters seconding it.
Twice I did.
Any further questions or comments to the amendment? Members of council, all those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried to the main motion as amended. Just one quick question I have for you guys. So are you guys already in the queue with your FIT application?
Yes, we are, and that's one of the reasons we want to move up in the queue, because what they're using now is they're using the application date
right.
and the number of points you get under this new grading thing.
So they're doing it under sort of a, I guess for lack of a better word, the same sort of program that we use when we got our tenders come in. So it's an evaluation and point grading system, and that's what they're doing right now.
Right, and what that does is because he was put in his application way back in May of last year, he's actually quite high up in the queue as far as the time stamp goes on it. Now we just want to move him up in the queue a bit based on the points.
So based on our metrics, the community support would actually bring you up even further.
Absolutely.
Good.
Yeah.
Members of council, to the main motion as amended. All those in favor? Opposed? That'll be carried. Thank you. Well done, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Earl. Well, guys, that is it for the items this evening. Good job. Members, we're now going to move on to notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion this evening? With none, I will ask for a motion to adjourn this portion of the meeting, please. Councillor Steele. Councillor Butters, are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. We'll now roll into our council agenda. Madam Clerk, are there any addendum items?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 4 items for amending the agenda this evening. First is a housekeeping item. 5 of the bylaws listed on your agenda this evening were listed improperly, the numbers. So I'm going to be correcting those numbers and reading them out as they've been corrected this evening. That correction will also be noted in the minutes. Secondly, the title of bylaw 58116612 has been amended to read being a bylaw to amend the engineering agreement with Land Inc. for the completion of a detailed skate and BMX park design. That's another housekeeping matter. Finally, we had 2 amendments this evening during Committee of the Whole, which impact our bylaws. Bylaw 58058012 regarding the Harbor Master Building has been withdrawn due to the adoption of a new recommendation during the Committee of the Whole meeting, and that will be presented at the next council meeting. And finally, normally bylaw 58106512 would also be withdrawn. This is a bylaw entering into a contract agreement with Patterned Concrete for the construction of a skateboard and BMX park. However, the Treasurer has requested that Council consider waiving the provisions of this, the procedural bylaw in order to pass that bylaw this evening to facilitate the moving forward with the construction process. So I'd ask that you entertain that motion if you would.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and I will entertain that motion right now. Members of council, if I can have a mover and seconder to waive the procedural bylaw to entertain that bylaw this evening. Councillor Bodner, Councillor Doucette, any questions or comments to that? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures this evening? If none, we'll move on to the adoption of the minutes. I have 2 sets of minutes here. I'll do in block, if you don't mind. I have the minutes of the 16th meeting special of council, dated May 14th, 2012, and the minutes of the 17th meeting regular of council, dated May 14th, 2012. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Danch, Councillor Kenny, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to those items requiring a separate discussion. Councillor Elliott.
Item 12 for the recorded vote.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Any further items? To the items not requiring a separate discussion, mover and seconder, please. Councillor Doucette, Councillor Desmarais, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That would be carried. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. That Department of Engineering and Operations Engineering Division Report Number 2012-17, Subject Contract 2012-10, construct a skate and BMX park located at Lock 8 Park be approved, recommending A, that the Council of the City of Port Colborne award contract 2012-10, construction of a skate and BMX park at Lock 8 Park to Pattern Concrete of Toronto, Ontario, as per option 3 above, for the total tendered price of $714,411.25 plus applicable taxes. And B, that the existing agreement between Land Inc. and the city be amended to include an upset limit of $36,638, excluding taxes for contract administration. And C, that the project be debentured in the amount of $807,377.45, excluding taxes, through the Infrastructure Ontario Loan Program for a period of 30 years. And D, that the appropriate bylaws be drafted and submitted for execution by the Mayor and City Clerk.
Thank you, Councillor, and that would be amended, as amended at committee. Okay. Do I have a seconder to that, please? I have Councillors Demaray, and I have a question by Councillor Steele.
Just a point of order, Your Worship. Should not what Councillor Elliott's reading out be the amended version, not the original version? So in reality, it's the numbers that are in here that would change?
Right.
The verbiage is the same?
That's
Do we
correct.
have those from staff, please?
Mr. Sinez or Mr. Lee, if you want to add, basically what he's asking for is what's the amendment? Or amendments?
The amendment would be the addition of the wave for $18,000 and color for $21,000 for total debenture cost of $846,377.45.
Thank you. Okay, so I have it moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments to the recommendation? There is a recorded vote requested. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's been a request for a recorded vote submitted by Councillor Elliott. So in accordance with the procedural bylaw, upon hearing your name, please indicate either yes or no to the motion on the floor. Mayor Radaway?
Yes.
Councillor Bodnar?
Yes.
Councillor Butters?
Yes.
Councillor Danch? Councillor Demaray?
Yes.
Councillor Doucette?
Yes.
Councillor Elliott?
No.
Councillor Kenny?
No.
And Councillor Steele?
Yes.
And the motion is carried.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll now move on to proclamations. I will be looking for a mover and seconder for this proclamation. That whereas Seniors Month is an annual nationwide celebration, and whereas seniors have contributed and continue to contribute immensely to the life and vibrancy of this community, and whereas seniors continue to serve as leaders, as mentors, volunteers, and important and active members of this community, and whereas their contributions past and present warrant appreciation and recognition, and their stories deserve to be told, and whereas the health and well-being of seniors is in the interest of all, and further adds to the health and well-being of this community. And whereas the knowledge and experience seniors pass on to us continues to benefit all. Now therefore, I, Mayor Van Sam Badaway, do hereby proclaim June 2012 as Seniors Month here in the city of Port Colborne, and encourage all citizens to recognize and celebrate the accomplishments of our seniors and the contributions they make to our city. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bodnar, Councillor Doucette. Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. I now have the minutes of boards, commissions, and committees, and I will do them in block if you don't mind. If you want to separate them out, let me know now. With none, I have the minutes of the Downtown Port Colborne BIA General Meeting dated April 11th, 2012. The minutes of the Heritage Port Colborne meeting of April 11th, 2012. The minutes of the Seniors Advisory Committee meeting of April 19th, 2012. The minutes of the new Community Center Advisory Committee meeting dated January 24th, 2012, and April 17th, 2012. And lastly, the minutes of the Environmental Advisory Committee dated April 4th, 2012. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Butters, Councillor Steele, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Notices of motion. Members? With no notices, Madam Clerk, the introduction of the bylaws, please.
Thank you. That the following bylaws be read a first, second, third time and finally passed. Bylaw 58015612, being a bylaw to authorize entering into a collective agreement between the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne and the Canadian Union of Public Employees and its Local 155. Bylaw 58025712, being a bylaw to appoint a chief building official. Bylaw 58035812, being a bylaw to appoint a member to the Downtown Port Colborne BIA Board of Management. Bylaw 58045912, being a bylaw to close temporarily to vehicular traffic sections of various streets for the purposes of the 2012 Festival Saint Jean. Bylaw 58056012, being a bylaw to set and levy the rates of taxation for city purposes for the year 2012. Bylaw 58066112, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 54949110, being a bylaw to approve a draft plan of subdivision known as Chippewa Estates. Bylaw 58076212, being a bylaw to authorize entering into an encroachment agreement regarding 22 Clarence Street. Bylaw 64312, being a bylaw to authorize entering into an agreement with Enbridge Gas Distribution, Inc. regarding part lots 19 and 20, concession 4, identified as part 3 on Plan 59R11176, bylaw 58096412, being a bylaw to authorize entering into a contract agreement with Pattern Concrete regarding contract 2012-10, construction of a skate and BMX park at Lockgate Park, bylaw 58106512, being a bylaw to amend the engineering agreement with Land Inc. for the completion of a detailed skate and BMX park design, and finally bylaw 58116612, being a bylaw to authorize entering into a contract agreement extension with 816110 Ontario Limited regarding tender 2008-14T winter equipment rental for snowplows and sanders.
Thank you, Ashley. Members of council, mover and seconder, please. Councillor Doucette, Councillor Desmarais. Any questions or comments to the bylaws? With none, all those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Madam Clerk, the confirmatory bylaw, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That the following bylaw be read a first, second, third time and finally passed. Bylaw 58126712, being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne at its regular meeting of Council, May 28, 2012.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Danch. Councillor Butters, are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Before I ask for a motion to go into closed session, I will announce our upcoming meetings. We have a meeting on June 11th, Monday, June 11th, 2012. It will be a committee of the whole meeting and council here in the chamber beginning at 6:30 p.m. Following that will be Monday, June 13th, 2012. We have a special meeting of council in closed session at 3:30 p.m. And following that, we have a meeting on June 25th, a committee of the whole and council meeting beginning at 6:30 p.m. once again here in the chamber. So I will now ask for a motion to go into closed session to deal with confidential report of Community Corporate Services Clerk's Division, report number 2012-22. The subject is an application for appointment to the Accessibility Advisory Committee pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including a municipal or local board employee or employees. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Elliott, Councillor Bodner. Are there any questions or comments to that recommendation? Members? With none, all those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. We'll now move into closed session. Have a wonderful week.